I call to order the August 3rd, 2021 Fullerton City Council closed session. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Governor Newsom proclaimed a COVID-19 state of emergency in March 2020 and issued an executive order which allows local legislative bodies to hold teleconference meetings accessible virtually to council members and the public. The public can access live meetings at fullerton.legistar.com on Spectrum Cable Channel 3 and ATT Uverse Channel 99. The council chamber will have seating available for the public, and all persons visiting city facilities shall observe the current health and safety protocols. The public may address City Council in person or virtually by joining the Zoom meeting online or by telephone. Those joining the Zoom meeting online should go to zoom.us/join. Those joining via telephone may call 1-669-900-9128. And either way you access Zoom, you will enter Zoom meeting ID 978-4219-1797. And there are further instructions for participating in the meeting on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Those who wish to speak in person should register at the city manager's office front counter, and the members of the public may speak only one time during public comments and once on each agenda item.
Thank you for catching my omission. Now we're ready for a roll call.
And Mayor Whitaker.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap.
Here.
Councilmember Jung.
Present.
Councilmember Silva.
Here.
And Councilmember Zara.
Here.
We will now hear public comment on closed session items. And seeing no members of the public in the chamber, are there
And
any
we have
Zoom
no
calls?
online attendees.
Okay. With that then, we shall recess to closed session. I call the August 3rd, 2021 meeting of the City of Fullerton City Council to order. Madam Clerk, would you please describe to those at home how they may participate?
Thank you, Mayor. Governor Newsom proclaimed a COVID-19 state of emergency in March 2020 and issued an executive order which allows local legislative bodies to hold teleconference meetings accessible virtually to council members and the public. The public can access the live meetings at fullerton.legistar.com or on Spectrum Channel 3 and ATT Uverse Channel 99. The council chamber will have limited seating available for the public, and all persons visiting city facilities shall observe current health and safety protocols. The public may address city council in person or virtually by joining the Zoom meeting online or by telephone. To join the Zoom meeting, you can go to zoom.us/join or call 1-669-900-9128. The Zoom meeting ID is 978-4219-1797, and further instructions for participating via Zoom are on the agenda for this meeting. If you wish to speak in person, please register at the city manager's office front counter, which is next door to the council chambers. And members of the public may only speak one time during public comments, whether in person or on Zoom. And the same is also true they get to speak one time on each agenda item.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and would you please call the roll?
Mayor Whitaker.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap. Here. Councilmember Jung.
Present.
Councilmember Silva.
Here.
Councilmember Zara.
Here.
We're pleased this evening to have Tony Mercado to provide the invocation. Mr. Mercado.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. If we could begin as we do everything that is good in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that might affect the residents, businesses, personnel, and legislators of the city of Fullerton, and continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish is for the pursuit of benefit, to benefit of the entire community. We ask this in your name. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Thank you.
Thank you. And would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Hand over your heart, follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. City Attorney, do we have a closed session report this evening?
No report this evening.
Thank you. And it's time to declare ex parte communications report by members of the council. Is there anything to declare? Yes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, actually, with a representative of OCEA. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I had a conversation with a representative from Unite Here.
And I had a conversation with a member from OCEA.
I guess we were, okay, got it. And with that, we have two presentations this evening. The first presentation is from Republic. And we better hope they're here. They were bringing a check.
Yeah, check. Yeah, no one checked in with me prior to the meeting, but if you want to, I'm speaking slowly in case someone jumps up. If we'd like to move on to the second presentation, I do know that person is here.
Okay.
They are on Zoom.
We will do that. Advance OC, the Orange County Equity Map. Katie Calvota to make a presentation.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here to present to you the Orange County Equity Map. And I understand that all of the council members have access to the presentation to our demo live. I'm assuming that that's still the case. And I will go ahead and share my screen and begin. So a bit about us first before we go into the equity map. Advance OC is a 501c3 nonprofit organization based here in Orange County. We are a public charity that was started recently to address the social and health disparities in Orange County. Our theory of change is basically a call to action for community members to react to the growing disparities that we see in a variety of different areas in our community. And we ask the simple question, what would you do if you knew where suffering lives, where poverty persists, and dreams are denied? Our organization is led by a 5-member board of directors. I am the president and board chair of Advance OC, along with my colleagues who all come from and have lived in Orange County most, if not all, of their lives. So the premise of Advance OC and what we're doing with the county is really a tale of two horizons. Orange County has one of the most beautiful landscapes in the world. However, we have, like very many other communities, challenged by different health, housing, education, economic issues. And when we begin to talk about how we close these gaps, Advance OC believes that we need to bring community stakeholders together to invest in equity-focused strategies. And the first place to do that is to establish a common baseline. Just as you would go to the doctor and get sort of all of your tests and understand where you are medically, we also think that the community has to have a common baseline. And we call that common baseline the Social Progress Index. And ultimately what that does is it's a way to map and measure the progress that we're achieving across all 580 census tracts in Orange County, all 34 cities. What you're looking at on your screen right now is a snapshot of the Orange County Equity Map of the city of Fullerton. And what we're pointing out is all of these social and health disparities ultimately end up with a story where we have communities that have resources and other assets in its community, giving it a life expectancy of 89.3 years, as indicated in the dark purple area of the city of Fullerton. And then right next door, we have a census tract or a neighborhood that has a life expectancy of 75 years. So what are the reasons why we see these disparities, these differences within the city of Fullerton and all across Orange County? Well, we have to first measure basically all of those various different components that make up the standard of living in our community. And we do that by partnering with an organization who has a worldwide, well-known social progress index that's used by the United Nations, by the state of California, by all kinds of different private sector companies, as well as various different state and municipalities across the country. And they're known for their social progress index, which we've brought to Orange County. So in July of 2020, the Orange County commissioned Advance OC to create the first ever social progress index for Orange County. And we did this by tapping into all the various different county agencies, city offices, CBOs in the community. And we asked them what are sort of the data sets that they use and they benchmark themselves against that are really, really important to their work. And we came up with a framework.
Katie, can you speak up a little bit louder, please?
Oh, sure.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
And also, sorry, Mr. Mayor, if I may, for the folks in the audience,
Apologize. I should have announced the screen in our chambers is not working tonight, but if you look on the back of the agenda, the PowerPoints are there for you to follow along. Thanks, Katie. Go ahead.
You're with me. Thank you. And so we have this framework where it shows three basic dimensions of data, right? We have basic human needs, foundations of well-being, and opportunity, and over 55 social and environmental factors that go into this index. And so all of these things we map out not only at the county level, but at the city level and at the neighborhood level. And so what you'll see is this very broad-based measure of everything from nutrition to water and sanitation to housing to health and wellness in the environment. This measure of inclusiveness. Do we have people who live in communities that are linguistically isolated? Do we have folks that are residentially isolated? So all of those factors come into the picture when you think about the scores for the Social Progress Index. And what we've come up with is that the average component scores for Orange County, the SPI score for Orange County is about 44.5, and that's on a range of 0 to 100. And so we're kind of middle of the road, and these are all the different scores for all of those different high-level components. So we also rank all of the cities by the Social Progress Index. And as you can see on the top end, we have the cities of Aliso Viejo and Mission Viejo. And at the bottom end of the range, we have the cities of Garden Grove, Stanton, and Santa Ana. And Fullerton is right there in the sort of the third wing of the rankings at a SPI score of 43. So what does that mean when we take a look at all of the various different social indicators in the county? Well, what you do is you come up with an equity map that looks like this. And this is live on our website and on the county's website and also on the healthcare agency's website. And what you see here is that we've mapped these various different 55 social and environmental factors onto a map of all of the various different census tracts in Orange County. That's 580 of them. And the areas where you see are yellow are areas where they rank low in social progress on all of those 55 different measures that we mentioned earlier. And then the areas in dark purple are the ones that have high social progress scores. So immediately you see areas of concern, right? Areas where we know that we've had issues with, resource disparities and access and all kinds of different things. But we also see a bifurcation of North and South counties. North County having distinguishedly more communities in yellow, and then South counties having more communities in dark purple. And so when we take a look at something like this, we have to ask ourselves, well, what does that look like on the ground? What is sort of the lived realities for the community members that make up the city of Fullerton? And so we're showing you here on this particular slide, the equity map for the city of Fullerton. And what you'll notice is the areas in yellow are areas in South Fullerton and a little bit in West Fullerton, and then a couple of areas in Northeast Fullerton that is in purple. So you can distinctively see areas where perhaps the city might consider additional investment or additional outreach to folks in the community so that we can understand what are some of the underlying issues facing our residents. And then we have here to show you, before I go into the demo, the top 50 census tracts in Orange County, the bottom 50 census tracts in Orange County. And then what we know also in looking at all of the data is that the social progress of a community is not tied to its median household income. What this slide is showing you here are highlighting census tracts or neighborhoods that are identified in red circles that basically have achieved the same amount of social progress, but with vastly different median household incomes. And then those communities, neighborhoods that are identified in the blue circle have about the same median household income, but different, achieving different levels of social progress. So how is that, important, and what does that mean for the community in Orange County? Thankfully, the city or the county leadership has placed a emphasis on equity during COVID and post-COVID. And what we've done with this data is that we've actually created a custom COVID vulnerability map to help the healthcare agency here identify communities that are most vulnerable to COVID. And we were able to use that map and the data to inform decisions to send mobile pods into those communities that are most vulnerable. And with this information, as you can imagine, we can do all kinds of different research and development opportunities into communities that are under-resourced, but also communities that may be struggling from housing and homelessness or need further support for their small businesses. So this is the homepage for the equity map. And you can access this on our website, advanceoc.com. And as you can see here, I'm showing you all of the 55 different indicators that we've mapped out for the Social Progress Index. And you can pick any of these various categories and see the map for all of Orange County, or you can just choose the city of Fullerton if you'd like to zoom in on that. But what we ultimately showed the county was that understanding the social progress and the elements that are a part of the Social Progress Index has a relevance to things like health outcomes. So what we've done is overlaid COVID cases for the county on top of this Orange County equity map. And what you'll see in front of you is a very high correlation between the areas that were infected or had high levels of COVID cases and COVID deaths relating to areas that also have low social progress. And what that tells us is that all of these social determinants of health, the things that factor into where you live, where you work, and where you play, if you have access to medical facilities, if you have access to good paying jobs, if you have access to all of those things, actually do produce differences in life expectancy and also produce different outcomes, whether it be education or health. And so all of this entire resource is available online. And I'd like to show you a couple more dashboards before we go, and then I'll take some questions. We developed this dashboard here. This is the Social Progress Index. And what you can do is you can search any address in any part of Orange County. And I'll just go ahead and type in where you guys are right now, which I believe is 303 West Commonwealth Avenue. And what you'll see is that the census tract where you're located is identified based on the address lookup, and you'll see the rank and score for this particular census tract. So imagine if this was your address, this is your home neighborhood. You could pull up a scorecard that tells you exactly what's going on in your neighborhood. So in this particular census tract where you're sitting right now tonight, you have a score of 41 out of a possible 100 points. You rank 393 out of 580 census tracts total. And what you see here are those 3-dimension scores and also some of the highest component scores and the lowest component scores. If you just look at the lowest component scores, you'll see that there may be a potential issue with access to information and communication, so personal safety, access to basic knowledge. And then if you drill down and see the scorecard, what you see is all of those 55 different elements with a score, and also some traffic signals. And the traffic signals basically tell you the yellow being that you're, operating at a very average or as expected level. The blue dots show you that you're overperforming your peer group. And then the red dots show that you're underperforming your peer group. Every single neighborhood or census tract has a peer group of 10 other census tracts and neighborhoods that we compare you to with similar median household income. So it's a relative benchmark, but you also see a rank So when we mentioned where you are sitting right now, you have an issue with personal safety, it's because you have a very high level of motor vehicle accident rate right there in that neighborhood. You also have a high property crime rate right where you're at. And then when we talked about access to information and communications, we're talking about a relatively low broadband subscription rate in that neighborhood, and also a low rate of one or more types of computing devices in households, as well as a high percentage of households with no internet access. So this is the kind of information that if you were working with constituents or you were working with community-based organizations, you can drill down into the neighborhoods and understand areas that are that are doing well, and then areas that may not be doing as well. And we think that this is a tool that can help you as a city triage the many, many different issues that you may be hearing from your constituents. So with that, I will take any questions that you may have or go further into any other dashboards.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councilman Silva.
Katie, this is Councilman Silva. Can you show us, I know you showed us and sorry the audience cannot see this, our screens, or our projectors is busted. But can you go show us the city of Fullerton with the COVID cases? I know you did that for the county, but can, and I know that, again, sorry to the audience, you're not going to be able to see this, but I'm curious of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with our partnership with the healthcare agency, we're the only organization that has access to county level COVID data. And we have it completely anonymized, so we don't know, who's who or what's what, but we do know where the cases have been reported, and we're able to figure out, for example, this census tract had 944 COVID cases and 13 deaths in this particular census tract. And when you take a look at our COVID vulnerability map and you compare it to the COVID cases, what you'll see is that the county has tried to work with various local, community-based organizations and such to go into those communities that they have identified as being most vulnerable, whether they have, a lack of access to information so that they can register over the phone or online for vaccines, or whether they lack transportation, or whatever the case may be. We've identified those communities so that we can strategize and deploy resources to help those folks get access.
Yeah, and just for the audience, where the 944 cases were South Fullerton, probably around the Euclid, Orangethorpe area. That's where we had the highest, or one of the highest number of cases, just for the audience to recognize. And then also, I think when we spoke, you said that you can set up a dashboard for the city of Fullerton so we can get it on our website. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can. And we can also drill down into any specific area that may be of interest to the city of Fullerton. So for example, we've had requests from the city of Stanton on economic development. I believe that they're receiving some dollars from the American Rescue Plan, and they were thinking about where to potentially invest those dollars. And so we've created a dashboard for them to help identify potential areas of investment. And so we've worked with them. We haven't, built it onto their website, but we've definitely sent them reports on where we think, potentially they could get the most bang for their buck.
And then, Mayor, if I may, I'd like to maybe have our city work with her to see if we can get a dashboard up for Fullerton and have access to this information.
Any other questions by council members at this stage? Okay, seeing none. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. It's a shame that our projector screen is not functioning this evening. So having access to this would allow those who missed this tonight to have an opportunity to
We
see
will be
the
able to
same
see it on the
graphics.
recording later.
Great. All right, and with that, thank you for your presentation. Is there a representative from Republic now in the chambers? And seeing none, we may just have to pass on this.
No one from Republic Services here for the presentation? I heard a rumor you might be here. Apparently, I'm standing by the wrong water cooler. I had a bad information, so.
We should have arranged for a pickup, I guess.
Yeah. They owe us interest now on the check, so.
Right. With that, we're now at the stage for public comments. I would ask all those who are interested in addressing the council this evening.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Oh, sure.
sir, if I may, we've got a presentation, I think, that, well, it's money for the city, so I want to make sure we address that first. If I can bring Mr. Roger Stanky.
Yes, we'll do that. We'll do that ahead of the public comments.
Thank
Sure.
you, sir.
For giving me a few minutes to speak this evening. My name is Roger Stanky, and this is my fiancée, Sonia Kalai. We're the owners of 888 Cigar Lounge here in Fullerton on Wilshire. Prior to the COVID situation, almost a year and a half ago, I was approached by Steve Zinigal, the founder of a national nonprofit organization called Right of a Lifetime, which is based in New Jersey, and was formed to help the families of law enforcement officers and firefighters. When he reached out to us, looking to do this first motorcycle charity ride event in Southern California, and based on a very strong belief in helping our heroes in red and blue, we accepted to help him immediately. Unfortunately, these plans were put on hold until the reopening of our country, giving us less than 3 months to plan and organize this charity event. We had the charity motorcycle ride on July 17th, and it was a huge success with over 120 motorcycle riders and passengers. Since this was our first time putting something like this on, I was scrambling to get everything set up and approved by the city of Fullerton, which I learned has a lot of moving pieces. I want to personally thank and express my gratitude to some of the Fullerton associates that made this charity ride event possible. First, I'd like to recognize Jerome Joaquin in the Public Works Department, who coordinated everything for this city, and I'm sure I drove him a little crazy, but is very understanding and patient with me. Others I'd like to recognize for their help are Chief of Police Bob Dunn and his staff, Tony Bogart, Eric Bridges, and Renee Herrera. From the Fire Department, Christina Hofstetler, Batiste, and other City of Fullerton associates, Dave Langstaff, Peggy Margarita Castaneda, John Clemens, Juan Nugent, Chai Tran, Dan Diaz, Olga Velowealth, and Maribeth Tenino. If I screwed up some of these names a little bit, I'm sorry, but if I left anyone else with this, I apologize, and thank everyone again for all their help. I want to give a special thanks to Councilman Fred Young for all the support, guidance, and help. I'm proud to say for the first year ride, we're able to present Station 49 in Irvine with a check, and today I'm pleased to present Fullerton Police with a check for $3,000.
Great. Thank you.
Who gets the money?
Chief Dunn? Yes. Thanks. Okay, we appreciate that support. There is a housekeeping item that I need to announce at this time, which is that item number 11 was pulled and will not be discussed this evening. It's been rescheduled for the August 17th regular session of the Fullerton City Council.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, so is it pulled, so we're not even going to explain why we're doing it? I'm just a clarification on the procedure here.
The reason I'm announcing it now is so that if you have any questions or comments or direction for staff, you could provide that in council comments.
All right, so during council, all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And Mr. Mayor, on that point also, if I may, does that mean if it's pulled, then anybody who may be wishing to speak on the item may now speak on it in public comment?
It would open up that possibility, but we're not going to discuss it in detail nor make any
That is,
decisions.
yes, just for the sake of residents who want to come
Sure.
speak on the item. Thank you.
Okay, so we are at the point for public comments. And again, anyone wishing to speak, please check in the lobby to provide your intention to speak. Each of you should address the council, all your comments addressed to the council. As usual, we request good decorum, and we're here to listen to important issues, and we would appreciate your cooperation in that regard. You have up to 3 minutes with which to make your case. You don't have to use all 3 minutes, but it's at your option. And at this time as well, we have consent calendar items which can be requested to be pulled by members of the public or by the council as well. So, Madam Clerk, what do we show as far as speakers?
Looks like I have about a couple of dozen speakers registered under public comments. I'll ask people who want to speak to please line up on that wall. I don't know, is that north? That's north, right? And line up at the speaker. If you're on this aisle, if you could please keep it clear because we're going to have some circulation going on. So if you're not in line to speak, please find a seat in chambers. And whoever is closest can go first.
One final reminder is that any items which appear on our regular agenda tonight will not be addressed during public comments. You can speak on any items other than what we have agendized. And I would ask that you wait until those items are considered, and you're welcome to speak on those items at that time.
I'll also encourage anyone who wants to speak on Zoom to start getting your hand raised now so we can move along when we get to that point.
Great.
And then, Mr. Mayor, just to know, we also have a translator here with us today, correct?
Oh, yes. We do have a translator available as necessary for both in-person and Zoom, right? Sir,
Hi, thank
good
you
evening.
so much. Good evening.
A little closer to the microphone if you would. Yeah.
My language is the Indian language, so I don't know anybody translate, but we are living in close by Fullerton Pacific Dry School, and we have so many problems for garden. They have like a lot homeless and no facility for restroom, and benches is no less benches. So we need some facility for Pacific Drive Park.
Well, thank you, and you're doing quite well with your English, by the way.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Appreciate you bringing your comments to us. Is there anything further?
No, that's it. We need the service. That's it.
Okay.
Thank
We
you so
heard
much.
what you said. We'll look
Thank
into
you.
this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. I was not towed today, thank you. But there were 5 other RVs that were towed.
The volume's a little low. If you could speak more into the microphone.
I was not towed today, and thank you for that.
Sure.
But 5 other RVs were. These people do not have jobs and have no money. Today, if I had... Sorry. Today, if I had been towed, I would have lost it in terms of the money. I can't afford to get it back right now. My RV was towed about 5 weeks ago, and it cost me $850. I think these 5 people will lose their RVs, and that's wrong. Fullerton is taking everything from us. The new law that was passed recently is wrong. And we are human beings and American citizens, and your new law needs work. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Ed Vargas, and I'm the president of the Fullerton Municipal Employees Federation. So I'll just kind of go by FMEF. And we represent most of the workers here at the city that are not safety, which is anybody in City Hall. It could be the police records. We support the police. We support fire if we're needed out in the streets. We're all over. We're the libraries. We're the parks. We're the parks and rec people. We're everybody that you see. And tonight, I have some of my members that are here tonight that wanted to come in and support me here. And I just wanted to talk about upcoming talks about the budgets and possible cuts and just how that impacts the services that we provide to the city. We are all very proud of what we do here. I've been my kids grew up. I consider myself a Fullertonian. I don't live here anymore. I've moved just next door to Buena Park, but I'm always here in Fullerton. I consider Fullerton my home. And I was involved with Little League. I had my kids growing up, football, all of that. I took pride in the parks that we played on, took pride in everything that we did here. And I'm just here to tell you guys that budget cuts does do a lot of impacting. And we have been on a downward trend as far as how the city is going, and budget cuts have been happening for a while now. And we're kind of at the point where we can't provide the type of service that we want to provide to the citizens. I mean, the quality of life is what, and the quality of what Fullerton brings is what brings people here. And we want to provide that kind of stuff. So I'm here that I just want to let you guys know that cuts is just, hopefully is just a last ditch effort in which to address the budget, because we're just seeing it right now with all the impacts that it has right now. We're not at the staffing levels that we should be, and we all know that budget cuts kind of goes towards that also. And all we want to do is we want to provide the city of Fullerton with the kind of services that they've been accustomed to for a long time.
Thank
and
you.
That you guys have been
Thank you,
accustomed
Mr.
to.
Vargas, for your comments.
So, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Good evening.
Hello, I am a resident of Fullerton, and I do remember that in 2020, Fullerton workers made sacrifices to help City Council and the city budget, as things were new and scary with the pandemic. Once money came from the feds and state, city workers were going to get their hours and normal workloads back. This new council has failed them and seem hostile towards the workers. Residents need city operations back to speed. We enjoy the library and care about water projects, the community center, and park improvement projects. Targeting employees with unfair comments, attacks, and put-downs is unprofessional of you and very unproductive. We demand respect and better treatment of our city staff. In 2020, many staff hours were spent laying out park improvement plans. Funding was approved by that city council. And it took staff effort and it took staff time to prepare these city park projects. Our city may lose $250,000 federal dollars if the Pacific Drive Park improvement project continues to be delayed by this new council. This money was council approved last year in 2020. Over 8,000 residents are waiting on it. The park restrooms have been welded shut for over a year now. Stop causing delays and get the Pacific Drive project done. Another park of concern is Union Park. The Union Park report mentions trails that lead to Independence Park. Does that mean that this council wants to stop the trail work? Let's not lose $1.7 million in state funds that were already designated to the trail system here in Fullerton. We also oppose selling the land of Union Park. Who does this city council majority want to sell it to? Is that legal? Residents want to keep it as a park. We want it open after being locked for a decade now. Does one of your donors want to purchase it? Many of our city workers are a part of the community. Their work hours and workloads need to be returned justly. City services like the parks, library, and community center need to be staffed and well-funded. To everyone watching and listening, contact your city representative. Do not allow city council members or the city manager to lose our money, to lose out on grant funds from the state and the feds, and don't allow them to sell off a park for commercial use. You can email them at council@cityoffullerton.com. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and staff. My name is Jensen Hallstrom, and I am here tonight to inform you of some unfortunate developments at Adelina Park. This is my childhood park that I remember visiting as I was growing up in Fullerton, and unfortunately, just 2 weeks ago, the largest tree in the park, about 70 years old, one of the Chinese elms had dropped a large branch. No one was injured, thankfully, and unfortunately, as a result, the entire tree was cut down shortly after. And I understand that there is a very real concern for the liability and the public safety risk of some of these trees, but subsequently, 5 more original 70-year-old trees are set to be cut down, and this is without any public input. This is, going to remove a third of all of the original mature shade trees that make Adelina Park unique, beautiful, shaded, and welcoming. So I spoke with our tree services inspector, Roger Cardenas, and he has inspected the trees and says that there is some cause for concern with the tree structural integrity because of some decay near the base of the trunks. Unfortunately, this is caused by years of lawnmower damage and weed whacker damage to the base of the trunk, since the lawn has been allowed to grow right up to the roots. And also, almost every night, sprinklers are, unfortunately, is improper irrigation where the sprinklers spray directly onto the trunks, causing them to be soaked and further cause those cavities to continue rotting. So it seems that this is an issue that has been years in the making, and the community is very upset by this very sudden possibility of losing a third of the canopy cover in their neighborhood park. And so I think that what the community would like is to postpone some of these removals and allow for a community conversation, allow for some public input, and maybe alternatives to completely removing the entire trees and then destroying the stumps with a grinder. So that is one aspect of my comment. The other, I would like to acknowledge the very, lengthy and dedicated process that has gone into developing the plan for. Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Everyone. My name is Kathy Moore. I'm about not trying to not
There-
remove the, not removing the Adelina trees. The kids, I work with kids with special needs for 34 years. I've been babysitting next door to the park, the first house, for the last 6 years. I've been taking my kids over, and we've had 5 at one time, plus getting to know all of the other younger children that are now growing up. Once the trees are gone, the 5, there's absolutely no shade, very, very little. And no one is replanting any trees. It's great watching the kids have fun underneath the canopy, because it's right now it's getting hot. It's going to stay hot for a couple months. And now we have, if those are gone, the kids aren't going to be able to play. The playground area where the 3 main ones are, there's absolutely no shade available, no canopy for the kids to play on the playground. It's going to be super hot. I have a boy in a wheelchair, getting him across to the grass. The first tree that was cut down 2 weeks ago, that's basically Kathy's tree. And I have a boy who pushes very little. He cannot push any harder. And cutting down on them, it's going to be really hard for all of the kids. Tree trimming, I'm all for it. My tree is like 2 weeks too late. Yeah, and it's unfair for the children and the parents to go bring their kids over to the park, play. Thank God the water park's open, but there's very little shade now. If you cut down the other 5 trees, what are the people, parties, gatherings, the children going to do? Yeah, it's really hard. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lara, and I live in Adelina Park neighborhood. We lived a very, very hard year in COVID, and we were all stuck home. And Adelina Park was the refuge for all the neighbors. That's where we would meet on a daily basis, and that's where our kids got to interact with other kids and with the community. They played every day. They did artworks. And Miss Kathy, who just spoke, she welcomed my 6-year-old daughter into her group, along with many other friends who come to the park every single day so the kids can get together, stay away from the screens, from television, from getting in trouble. They interact, they socialize, they play, and it's so healthy for them. The problem now with cutting the trees, it's literally gonna be so harmful for the kids, and I'm not gonna be able to go find a shady place for my daughter or for the other kids to play at the park. The park, to begin with, is very, very sad. You guys should go look at the play structure at the park. But we still made the best of it, and we still had our kids go play, even though it does not accommodate their interest. It's so sad and old and dirty, and the trees were the beautiful thing about Adelina Park. That's where we would go because of the greenery and the shade, and that's where we got to socialize. In 2018, I came and I spoke against the Pathways of Hope project because our kids were also under threat that we as parents were not going to be able to let our kids go out, play on their own, go to the liquor store, get ice cream, and that project was postponed. And now I hear that it's on the agenda again, and the homeless shelter is going to be built in our neighborhood. So now I am worried for 2 things for our children, my 2 daughters and the other kids. Going to the park now, they're going to have no trees and a sad play structure, plus the project on Commonwealth with the homeless shelter that's not going to allow our kids to live their childhood. And I hope that you guys take this into consideration, and we want alternative. If the trees are gonna be cut, we want alternative. What our kids are gonna play under, what is gonna compensate for the lost shade, and what is our community going to do? I hope you guys take this into consideration and find a solution, alternative, before the trees are cut. Postpone it just to see what can be done before we get rid of these amazing trees that I hope they can be saved, or at least postponed till we know what's gonna happen next. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Jane Rands. I just wanted to clarify one thing, that there's not going to be a homeless shelter built on Commonwealth. It's actually a family housing, affordable family housing. But what I'm here for is something that's really sort of hurting in our community. A man was killed in our name as Fullerton residents, as the Fullerton City Council. Some of you weren't on council then. We have no justice for the murder of this man. Whether or not it's a murder, we don't even know yet. It's been over a year since he was killed. Our Orange County District Attorney Todd Spitzer said he would determine whether or not he would bring charges against the man who killed one of our Fullerton residents, and there's been no action. I know that there are sympathetic council members here, and I would like to ask that you pursue justice for Hector Hernandez. Thank you.
Hello, council members, Mayor Whitaker, Pro Tem Mayor Dunlap. Thank you for your time tonight. I'm here to speak on behalf of Pathways of Hope and 1600 West Commonwealth. permanent supportive housing that's going to be developed there under the tagline affordable housing. I'm friends with Laura, who spoke just before the other person who spoke before after her, and she's a friend of mine. She's one of my neighbors. She's cooked us food, and I enjoy hanging out with them. I know her two daughters. My daughter is friends with her daughter, and I just enjoy our relationship with them. But it's the same with all my neighbors in Adelina Park. I just want to explain the history behind Pathways of Hope and that whole situation. 2018, we were here and kind of protesting against Pathways of Hope building permanent supportive housing on that property. They did not go there because there was like public schools in the area, parks, and it just wasn't like an appropriate place for permanent supportive housing for homeless. Now I guess council approved Pathways of Hope being allowed to build. I guess you're in agreement, like a letter of intent or something, for them to build affordable housing there on that property. But just to explain, they're under affordable housing, and the definition is all will be rentals reserved for those earning between 25 and 60% of the area median income for Orange County. But the thing is, they're allowed to change that to permanent supportive housing for homeless people. And you guys, the council members, need to understand that they can change this to permanent supportive housing for homeless. They're under the umbrella of affordable housing under a certain median income, but they're allowed to change that to permanent supportive housing for homeless people. And that's deceptive, I think, disingenuous in what they're trying to do. And I'm for affordable housing. People work at Starbucks. I go to JP23. I'm just like you. I go to all the restaurants. Merch Social is my favorite place, my favorite new place. The best tandoori ever. But the point is, these people, there is a need for affordable housing. You make $20,000 a year. You need somewhere where you can afford to live. That's not what that property is about. It's not about someone who works at Starbucks making $20,000 a year. It's about permanent supportive housing for homeless people, not the problem in Fullerton, which is affordable housing. There needs to be apartments and places for people that don't make enough money, and there's not enough. There's like all these like high density like stuff that they put up in the past like couple years, and they're like what, $2,500, $3,000. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I've come as a representative for the Fullerton Ilano Club. We have been in Fullerton since 1974 at 3 different locations. And during COVID, our building was sold. We leased our building, and our building was sold. We were told we could apply for a lease partnership with the city, and we did apply with the Park and Recreation Department, and were denied. When I followed up to find out why we were denied, we were told that we didn't serve a large enough portion of the community. I think we serve a very large portion of the community and are a great benefit to the community. Just my one story myself, in 1981, I found I had a problem with alcohol. And I showed up at the Fullerton Ilano Club, and there were people there that would support me and help me. And today I've been a business owner for 21 years, and I own 2 homes in Fullerton. And that is a direct result of having the support of the Ilano Club, which I think is really necessary in our city. So if I can get the council to reconsider allowing us to be at Hillcrest Park at the Log Cabin Building. Right now you have homeless people with their things on the porch there. You have graffiti being removed daily from there, and there's always the smell of marijuana. I think that we would be a great influence up there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you so much for taking our some time to listen to us. My name is Laura Balonix, and I also am a Fullerton dweller since my birth. I grew up here, went to Troy High School, went to Cal State Fullerton after having gone to Fullerton College. And about 10 years ago, my life basically fell apart because I was abusing alcohol and a few other substances. And really, I did buy a house here before my life started to fall apart. And I was very blessed to be able to come to the Ilano Club that was here on Commonwealth. Jan had just mentioned it earlier. And we are a place where people from this community can actually get better and recover from this issue. You probably don't want us out there anyway. What I'd like to express to you is that had it not been for the Fullerton Ilano Center to go to, I believe that I would have lost everything. I was able to stop drinking and rebuild my life via community service there that is provided there, as well as attendance to the meetings that are provided. We hold at least 5 meetings a day when we are open. I also do have a much stronger sense of my place in this community, which again makes me want to stay here and pay my taxes here. One of the more underlying issues that were mentioned earlier today by your first presenter on Zoom, I believe we need to look at is the problem of alcoholism and addiction in this city. And we really do affect directly our community in being able to give a place for these people to have meetings and to recover and to become much more fruitful members of society. We would like to have the city reconsider its position on not becoming lease partners with the Fullerton Ilano Center. We really do feel that the Isaac Walton cabin up at the park at Hillcrest Park is a fabulous fit for us. As Jan had also mentioned, there is quite an element of homelessness that we feel could very easily be helped by our presence there. We not only provide a place for people to have meetings for this issue, but we also provide community and fellowship and actually some socialization, which I think is also something that we all could benefit from for people who are struggling with the disease of alcoholism and addiction. I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi, City Council. My name is Alexis Reyes, and I came here to advocate for the little free libraries in our Fullerton parks. So if you're not familiar with that, it's basically a post with a little house, and it's a it's a leave one, take one book. So it's for the community. It's for the community, and I would want to put them in our parks, but I do recognize that there's an ordinance that doesn't allow certain things. I don't think it was aimed for specific little libraries, but I think it's something we can definitely rewrite, where, as in the city of Derby, in another state, they rewrote their ordinance to follow the little library policies. I will be emailing all the city council members a document of exactly what ordinance that follows and how it can help more than be a nuisance in our community. I think putting them in District 4 and District 5 parks, especially those districts are really far from the library. Also, our library is working in low hours. It's not open all the time. A lot of kids can't just ride their bikes or walk to the library. We have closed down the Hunt Branch Library. I think installing these in our Fullerton parks will really give access for little kids, especially now since they're outside playing. So I really hope you guys consider this. I know it's a lot, but I just need some motivation and some help from backup from the city council to kind of get this going. Another park I thought was great after hearing everyone speak was Adelina. And I do think Adelina, their trees are also beautiful. I used to go play basketball there all the time. I do think it wouldn't be hard to replant some trees and do a community planning. And I really think it wouldn't be difficult at all to postpone it just for a little bit so it gives us time to replant the trees. But I know it's a long process, but I think after all of hearing everybody's comments, I think it's about community work and putting all minds together, because I think all of these problems we can tackle. We just need everyone's input and opinions to make it the perfect plan. And I really hope you guys consider my free library plan as well. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is Angela Garrett. I'm a member of the Little Chapman Aldina Park community. I would like to comment on the passing of National Corps being chosen as the developer of 1600 West Commonwealth. 3 years ago, our neighborhood opposed the development of this property by POH. Due to a diligent member of our neighborhood, 2 weeks ago, we found out that this was slipped onto the agenda and was passed as a developer. The intention is well known to develop this as affordable housing with the intention of converting it to supportive housing. The concerns 3 years ago are the same today. This plan was slipped onto the agenda knowing the pushback you would get from all of us, and we will continue to push back because of the intent. The drug use and the crime that would come with the development of this property is not going to be able to be contained by the police department given the funding cuts that they're about to receive. Supportive housing does not belong anywhere near our neighborhood, and we strongly, along with many of the members of my community, oppose the development of this property, and we implore you to reconsider. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council members, Mayor Bruce Whitaker, and everybody here. My name is Rosa Bravo Merritt, and I've been a long-term, all my life, resident of Fullerton. And I'm very concerned with all of the people that are here that have so much to say. And I don't hear one good thing that's going on with our council. And I'm a little bit ashamed. And I hope you listen. This is what I have to say. I'm concerned for our health, removing trees without considering planting them again, removing our parks, especially in the areas that you yourselves hired as city leadership to find social progress, when our south side of Fullerton is in need of your help and your assistance. And it's been a long time. It's time that you hear us. We need our parks. We have families. We are people. We are born just like you. We need to breathe. We need to have fresh air. We need to have a place to be able to go when there's a pandemic, when we're tied up in our homes, and especially all the buildings around us, and people don't have living space. What we did is go to parks, just like you did when you were a child. We went to parks with our families. They're important. You once mentioned, Mr. Mayor Bruce Whitaker, and I've heard you. I believe in you. I've heard you speak in your own meetings, even before you were mayor. I know that you have a good heart, and I hope that you hear us, and you follow your heart. And Councilmember Jung, you mentioned that you would fix it. You would fix the fact that our park has been closed for 15 years. It's not even watered. It's not even green. When I take my dog, she gets pricks all over her body, and I have to take her to the dog, vet. This is what we have across the street from my home that's open to all of our city, our Fullerton members. Please come, make it green. Come and visit. If you build it, people will come. There's things we can do if we need money, but don't take away our parks. It is zoned as a park, and that is what it should be. Do the right thing. Work around it. I'd like to introduce a little boy who lives right across the street. Come on over, Kenneth.
Hello. Hello. My name's Kenneth Dean, and can you guys fix Pissett Drive School Park and on Trislow?
What would you like at Truslow? Do you live there?
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but your time is finished. Unless he wants to speak individually.
Okay, you go ahead and speak. Where you live, what do you want?
I live across the street, and I want a new park so I can play.
Right, thank you.
And my name's Kimberly Dean.
This is Kenneth, my son. He's 7. I have a 3-year-old also. And it's hard living across the street from a park that the kids can't even go. You don't even feel safe. Like she said, it's not green. And think about it when you're a kid. Wouldn't it have been awesome to have a park directly across the street? You look out your front door, the park's right there. And they can't even utilize it. So not just for them, but the other kids in the neighborhood, it'd be life-changing, you know, the memories they could have. Right? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
My name is Bill Brown. I'm a 47-year resident of Fullerton, and I just came in to reiterate an issue that a lot of people might know about, might not know about in this room, the murder of Hector Hernandez. He was murdered 14 months ago now, well past the time, acceptable time that you'd think an investigation would be done. And we still have the officer that murdered Hector driving around on regular patrol, like what happened was okay. Hector was trying to surrender after defending himself from being attacked in his home, being beaten up with blood on his shirt, blood on his face. He did what anybody's entitled to in this country, is to defend himself, to intimidate people from his home, not hurting anybody. And when he tried to move back from all the intimidation, an officer let his dog go on him, at which time he had every right to defend himself from the dog biting him in his own front yard. And a big point I'd like to make is that the takeaway you get from this is, if someone is doing what the police tell you, it doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to hurt you or kill you. And that's exactly what you see when you watch this. The man's intoxicated. He's told to put his hands up. So he puts his hands up, and that's all he's told to do. 10 officers scream at him all at one time, confusing him. How's he supposed to make head or tails out of anything in that moment? Other than, I feel scared here. What am I to do? I'll just keep my hands up because that's all what I'm told to do. So he does that. But he still has a dog sent to attack him and drag him down in his front lawn. And then when he defends himself from the dog, the officer decides, and he's at a distance of 8 feet or more, he decides, I need to move up and kill him so he doesn't hurt my dog, when he recognizes he has a knife and he's going to fight off the dog. So when you watch it, you clearly see that the officer doesn't want to hurt his own dog, so he has to move within 3.5 feet to lean over and shoot him 2 times and kill him. And that's not, I mean, that's a violation of the law. Anybody can clearly read this, don't have to be a lawyer to look at it, read the law, and say, that wasn't necessary. The officer didn't need to move close to him and execute him on the ground. It looks like an ISIS video, is what it looks like. His feet are off the ground, both of them. He's on his back. The dog's attacking at him, ripping at his arm. And so when he goes to defend himself, the officer then joins in the attack and decides, I'm going to shoot and kill this guy 2 times. I don't think police officers are trained to do that. He was never threatened. He never showed intent to hurt the officer. He wasn't in the position to hurt the officer. He didn't have the capability to hurt the officer. All 3 of these, nothing is being met. So I don't understand why it takes the DA 14 months to look at this. I want to request you guys send another letter, please, respectfully, to the DA asking what's taking so long in this investigation. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Bumaro Vicente, although folks know me as Boomer. I'm a member of Chicanos Unidos and also the policy director for Chispa. Both of these organizations are organizations that advocate against police brutality. I myself am a lifelong resident of Santa Ana, but today I'm here in solidarity with the friends and family of Hector Hernandez. Hector's case is something that hits close to home. My old neighbor, Benito Osorio, was shot and killed by the Santa Ana Police Department in 2016. Benito was killed by 5 officers who fired a hailstorm of bullets at him. Unfortunately, these officers are still on the force in Santa Ana and face no consequences. And 2 of these officers were also involved in the infamous pot shot raid that happened in Santa Ana a few years ago, for folks who don't know about that. These incidents are all too familiar with the city of Fullerton. Last month actually marked the 10th anniversary of Kelly Thomas's death. Kelly's death brought a whole nationwide discussion on police reform. 2 of his officers were acquitted and 3 were charged for voluntary manslaughter. Just last fall, 2 of these officers involved in Kelly Thomas's death, Joseph Wolf and Jay Cincinnati, lost a court battle to overturn their termination. 10 years later, this legacy of police brutality is still very alive in the city of Fullerton. Hector Hernandez still deserves justice for his murder by Fullerton police. I find it absurd how Officer Jonathan Farrell is still on the force when this investigation is still going on. Right now, that fool is still getting money in his paycheck right now in his pocket. It's been over a year, 14 months to be exact, and we still have not received any answer from you all or the DA revolving Hector's case. We are here to remind you that we're not going away. We're here to remind you that you all are not doing your job. And I'm here to remind you that next year, in 2022, most of you are up for re-election, including DA Todd Spitzer. And we're not gonna let the people forget your silence on this case. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kelly Williams. Thank you, Council. I have been a Fullerton resident for 31 years, and I'm here to ask, why is the chief waiting to release his investigation? Why is he waiting for Todd Spitzer? I would like the City Council to please follow up with the DA. It's been 14 months. What's the holdup now? We need justice, and my 2 nephews that have no father, they need justice as well. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Jeff Letourneau. I also want to echo the 2 prior speakers and talk about the murder of Hector by Officer Farrell. There are multiple issues here. One is the absolute incompetence of the DA taking more than a year to get back to you. When I've talked to members of the council, the response has primarily been, we're waiting to see what the DA does. Well, it's clear what he's going to do. He's got a tough re-election fight. He's going to do nothing. So this council needs to poke and prod and get this investigation brought to a conclusion by their office or move on your own. The most important thing, though, however, is that when instances like this happen, the immediate response of almost any responsible police force is to place the officer on desk duty. If there's some question about whether they're capable to interact with the public while carrying a gun because of some sort of emotional instability, you do not simply take the dog away and move him to the other side of town, right? This needs to be addressed. This officer came 8 feet forward, put 2 bullets in him, and murdered him right in front of his neighbors. And all he gets is moving to the other side of town and removal from the canine unit. This is something that you need to address with your police chief. This officer is incapable under high-stress situations of interacting with the public in a safe and effective manner. It's just a disgrace. It's clear the DA is not going to do their job. I'm pleading with you to do the politically unpopular thing and move it on your own. Too much time has passed, and if anybody thinks that this issue is just going to go away if you just drag your feet, look at Brea and the KKK name on the school. It's not going to go away. Every meeting, the signs will be here, the people will be here, the kids, the hurt will still be there. Do something. TA Spitzer will not. It's your responsibility. The chief of police, get this officer on a desk and out of a car and take away his damn gun. Thank you.
Hi, I'm here to speak in regard to preserving the urban forest. Jensen spoke earlier about it, and a few other residents. I'm a homeowner in Fullerton. I've lived here for a little over 10 years, and more recently it's become an issue, like some of the other members have spoken about. So basically, recently a number of residents have shown concern for the trees being cut down throughout the city, including a lot of old growth and historic trees in areas like the Hillshire Trail, Hillcrest Park, the Kimberly Clark Orange Groves, and then throughout several neighborhoods, like on Raymond and Chapman Ave. Droughts, budget cuts, personnel shortages ultimately affect tree maintenance, and this problem is only going to get worse, next coming months to years. I'm a firefighter paramedic, and I know that public safety ultimately takes precedence over any other argument. So with this issue, I understand that they need to be cut down if they're deemed a public safety risk. But I think this basically can be prevented if proper maintenance and additional care for these trees, if that is a priority. Fullerton has a tree city designation, as a lot of you guys know, and I don't think it has just an obligation, but a duty to maintain and also to preserve its urban forest. Basically, my goal would be I would like to identify and give additional maintenance and care to trees that are deemed to be dying throughout the city so that it'll prevent them from being cut down. And I would like tree services to try to be more proactive instead of retroactive and just cutting them down once they're deemed dead. And replanting is great for those that are dead or decayed, but it's not the complete solution. A lot of the trees being cut down, especially the 100-plus-year-old trees, in most of our lifetimes will never see full growth. So I believe that maintenance and preservation is going to be the key to preserve the urban forest, and I hope a reasonable plan can be put forth, hopefully with the help of residents, so that we can preserve the trees we have left. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Harry Langenbacher. I've owned a home in Fullerton for 21 years, and I'm here to speak about my concerns about discussions of cuts in city workforce. All the city staff I've dealt with recently complain of being short-staffed and overworked, and other members of the city that I've been interacting with this year have left the city. Some of the workers fear losing their jobs. When we lose experienced workers, we're losing part of what keeps our city functioning. Our experienced workers know our city and know how to run things. Years of experience cannot be replaced in one day by hiring a replacement. We must work to retain the people with the experience or lose them to neighboring cities and the county. Most city workers are hardworking public servants who want to do the best for Fullerton and those who live here. They are essential workers who had to keep working through the pandemic, even at their own peril. They've always been helpful when I needed them. When I report graffiti, it is removed in a timely manner. When I had an urgent water supply problem, they came out and turned off the water before too much of it ran down the sewer, and so on. The library staff, the community center staff, and various city departments have always been helpful in my experience. When we get assistance from the state and the federal government, we should prioritize saving the city workforce. The workers who operate and maintain our infrastructure are essential parts of the infrastructure itself. If we lose these workers, we lose infrastructure. When we lose infrastructure, we will lose our city. If I still have time, I do. I want to tell a little story. When I worked at TRW 30 years ago, we had a production line, and we had a big turnover. A lot of managers and leads left the company, but the production line continued because the people at the bottom kept doing what they had done every day. When they left, things ground to a halt and they had to reinvent their production line. I don't want to see that happen here. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'm Deborah Longenbacher, and before I start, I want to say amen to everybody who's supporting the Hernandez family. I think somebody needs to get fired, and I think some police chief needs to be reviewed as well. That's truly unconscionable. But what I want to talk about tonight is our city employees. These are our essential workers. For a year and a half, we've been celebrating essential workers in our country, all over the country. Healthcare workers, pharmacists, people that are orderlies in the hospitals. But our essential workers include our city employees, the people who help keep our street lights on, who clean up the trees that fall over, the clerks and support staff in the offices that make all of this happen. These are our essential workers. So, there's many things that they do, including one of City Council's very favorite topics, filling potholes. And we need to honor their essential work, not only during the time of COVID, but forever. What they do to make modern urban living livable in our city. That's what their purpose is. And without their essential work, these public resources, our city will crumble. Our beautiful community center just down the street has housed vaccination clinics. And I hope that soon we'll be having other programs that will be helpful for children and seniors. Now, before you start singing the Fullerton City Budget Blues, we know there's not a shortage of money. Our Governor Newsom just signed a huge budget. That money trickles down to the counties and states. Also, there's the CARES Act that provided money for our city as well. What we know about city and federal budgets is you lose it or you lose it. You have to spend that money, and I want you to spend that money on our essential workers in Fullerton. Unfortunately, ballot measure S for minimal increase in sales tax did not pass in Fullerton, as it would have certainly helped to support our city. I am an essential worker in LA County, and I have truly benefited from the state budget and from the CARES Act. I want my city employees to benefit in the same way that I have. Tomorrow, I'm going to be getting a check for $1,500 as a bonus.
Thank you.
For being
I'm
an
sorry your
essential
time
worker.
has expired, but thank you.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Hello, good evening. My name is Chrissy, and thank you to the City Council, Mayor, and Police Department, as well as others for letting me speak today. I live in the Fullerton neighborhood, and I used to go to Pacific Drive School as a student. Right next door is a Pacific Drive Park. Going to the park is a reoccurring memory for me, and it was a great place to spend time with my family and friends. However, there are no proper sanitary restrooms to use at any time of the day. Anytime one of us needed to, whether it was an emergency or not, we were stuck and had nowhere to go to. It was especially hard for my mom being in a wheelchair. Going in, you see nothing but trash, random things laying around, and was very unsanitary. Sometimes there are people occupying the restrooms, leaving no room for privacy at all. Moreover, there's no space to sit, little to no benches, and it'd be dirty and very uncomfortable. There's no genuine space for cleanliness nor privacy in the bathrooms for places to sit. This obstacle goes for little kids who come and play at the park, trying to enjoy their time. I hope you all consider this as a call to better this dilemma and improve our lives as well as others and protecting the environment and the community. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Joe Malari, excuse me, and I'm an 8-year resident of Fullerton. I live 4 houses west of Pacific Drive Park, and I also want to speak on behalf, like the young lady in front of me, of supporting the improvements to the park. I was trying to remember coming to this meeting, the initial 2 community input meetings because, to be honest, it's been like 4 years, I believe, somewhere in 2016 or 17. My wife, who's also in the audience with my son, we both attended at the multipurpose room at the school. And one of the reasons that we want to provide the input, our son at the time was about 1.5 years. We figured, great, this is going to be great for the community and a nice neighborhood park. We hope to provide some input, and I just hope that it really does get passed because just like the young lady was mentioning, public safety has been an issue at the park. Unfortunately, we've had to call on numerous occasions, just like a lot of our neighbors, because of a lot of folks that are using it as a place to conduct illegal activities such as drugs, etc. The two areas of my concern, though, with the improvements are just because nothing has happened yet, are the parking lot, because it's basically an attractive nuisance at this point, with a lot of vehicles hanging out, especially in the past year plus with COVID, and there's obvious drug deals and et cetera going on. I do appreciate, especially recently, because I see it on my Ring camera every morning, that the police has been definitely patrolling there a lot more frequently. I definitely appreciate that. It's noticeable. But in the morning, there's just congregations there. That's the one area of concern. The bathrooms are the other because it is pretty disgusting. We live close enough that we don't need to use the restrooms, but unfortunately, for the most part, we go to parks on the north side of town, drive to them to use them just because we know they're safe. We know that the bathrooms, et cetera, are clean, and I just really hope that the improvements are made. My son is now 6 years old. He does go to Pacific Drive School, and I do know that the whole, the school as a whole and the administration also really support the improvements. I think it'll benefit the kids at the school, and it would be really nice to have our neighborhood park be safe. That's one of the main reasons why we moved 4 houses down from the park and the elementary school. Thank you very much.
And then, Mr. Mayor, if I may, so that was on item 10. Are we going to allow public comments to be focused on item 10 of tonight's agenda? Is that where we're going?
No, I'm sorry. That I failed to prevent that.
Okay. Thank
Apologize.
you.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Whitaker. I also want to thank the Police Department, Officer Pritchard, Officer Wright, and Officer Garcia for coming out to answer our calls regarding the illegal activity that happens at Pacific Drive Park. Just today, someone had a pocket knife and was stabbing a tree in front of the playground, and we called the police department. Of course, you all have to answer different calls. No one was able to come out. We do see that the bathrooms, there are illegal activities going on, drug deals. I work from home and see that a lot of this stuff happens, during the early morning and in the evening. The one thing I ask, I know that you all are approving this improvement on the consent calendar, is that we figure out how to either close down the bathrooms or fence up the park to avoid the situations that we are seeing, and having the police staff be deployed weekly to come out because of this park having a lot of use of the homeless community and the illegal activity happening there. I see that I don't know if you're trying to say something.
No, all I'm trying to do is divine the line there, because you're speaking generally of public safety issues. But if you get into park improvements, it really does belong if that item is discussed a little bit later.
Then I guess we should pull that item from the consent calendar and have a discussion around the improvements of the park and the parking lot, as some of the residents have mentioned. Today seems to be the day of the park. The other thing I wanted to mention is around, thank you to the Lagenbachers for talking about the essential workers and city government and public funds. I think it is very important. I work in the private sector as a director of human capital, and we do pay our employees bonuses. We do compensate them for the work that they do. City workers, on the other hand, are dedicating their lives every day to improve our city, to ensure that there's infrastructure, and they also need to be compensated for the work that they do. Lately, they have been villainized in blogs and in other articles about their pensions and about their pay. When we think about a competitive landscape of human capital, it is very important that we attract the talent that is going to be here and we retain that talent to ensure that our city operates appropriately. I look at some of the council members who have voted to cut services and funding. Please restore those services and funding once we are in a better budget climate. And if you are in the private sector, you should know very much about how to run a budget and around human capital and how we do reward employees for the work that they do. So thank you so much, city staff, for all that you do to take care of us here in Fullerton.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Verónica Morán.
Good evening, my name is Veronica Moran.
Primeramente, gracias al Departamento de Policía que caminó con nosotros el día miércoles pasado.
First of all, I want to give thanks to the police department who walked with us last Wednesday.
Eso sigue creando conexiones con nuestra comunidad y con nuestros niños.
This helps to create connections with our community and also with our children.
También quería hablarles rápidamente, necesitamos áreas verdes, necesitamos que la ciudad invierta y siga con los proyectos que ya son aprobados para que podamos tener nuestra comunidad segura y también que puedan salir afuera las personas ahorita con la pandemia.
So I just wanted to encourage that green areas would be able to continue to be invested in, and that the projects that have already been approved would be able to move forward, so that we would have safe communities and so that people would be able to go outside during the pandemic.
No desperdicien, por favor, los fondos que vienen del estatal o federal para que nuestra ciudad siga teniendo estas áreas verdes.
So please do not waste the funds that are coming both from the state and federal funds so that we can be able to continue to have these green spaces.
Y también sé que vamos a hablar en Iron de Pacific Drive, pero por favor, escuchen a la comunidad.
And I know later on we're going to speak about Pacific Drive, but please listen to the community.
También quería pedirles por los trabajadores esenciales de la ciudad, que es muy importante para todos, que los cuiden y les den lo necesario.
I also wanted to ask for essential workers, which are very important for the community, that you take care of them and you give them what is necessary.
Es todo, gracias.
That's it. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Alma Vilchis.
Good evening. My name is Alma Vilchis.
Estoy aquí para darle las gracias al Departamento de Policía por acompañarnos a la caminata con la comunidad.
And I want to give thanks. I'm here to give thanks to the police department for accompanying us on the community walk.
Y para pedir por favor que se siga con el proyecto del parque.
And to ask, please, that you would continue with the park project.
Porque también tengo una niña de 6 años que cuando sale de la escuela le gusta jugar.
Because I have a 6-year-old daughter, and when she gets out of school, she likes to play.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members and Mayor Whitaker. My name is Carmen, and I've been living in Fullerton for about 30 years. And I'm here to kindly ask you to please allow the renovation to start the Pacific Drive Park.
Sorry, we need to address that when the item is discussed a little bit later.
Oh, okay. So besides the renovation, it will look beautiful to connect the trail. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, good evening, Council.
Hello, good evening, Mayor. I'm Egled Nusi. You see most of these people, they are from District 4 and from Pacific Drive. We were waiting since 5:36 to speak in public comments. All of us, we have children waiting at home. And I will ask you, please respectfully, if we can allow to talk right now, they cannot stay late. I don't know what time is going to be the item addressed.
The difficulty is that a gentleman earlier pulled the item, and it will be discussed at length as a regular item. And unless he decides to relinquish that, at which point I could allow you to speak to it.
Can you relinquish, Mr. Miguel Alvarez?
Approve the park and ensure that there's a
No, no speaking from the audience to issues. It has to be at the.
I will retract the pulling of the item
Okay.
if the consent item will allow for the park to ensure public safety.
The only way.
Amend the then we have.
The only way to assure that is whether or not any council member here intends on pulling that item. I would need a declaration of that now.
I have no intent.
I'm happy to pull the item.
Do you intend to pull the item?
Yes, sir, I will.
Okay, so the item will be discussed, so it can't really be discussed in public comments, not as relates particularly to Pacific Drive Park.
Okay, then we
Mr.
have
Mayor,
to wait
if I may,
for them.
would it be okay to discuss that as the first item right after the public comments?
I've had that practice of late. The council can certainly disagree with that, but that's my preference usually.
Thank you.
I will ask you, Mayor, please. Most of these we are District 4 parents that will come here to. This is for our park of the children. And look at some, they have their children waiting in the car with their fathers.
Well, if we're not speaking in public comments, then it's going to accelerate, and we're going to get to that item much more rapidly.
Can we ask who else is in public comments that's not going to speak, that are not going to speak on Pack Drive Park? So then if there's...
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to continue to waste everybody's time here. It's heartbreaking to me that all of these folks are out here from the community. So I'm happy to move this item along. I just want to make sure that I clarify a few things, and I'll do that in council comments, sir. So I'm not going to pull the item. I wasn't planning on doing it, but I wanted to address a few things that the residents were saying about the park and make sure that those things were addressed. But again, I'll do that in council comments, sir. I'm just not going to allow these folks to be here longer than they need to be.
Thank you, council member. So that being the case, you can continue in public comments on your message, and we will not pull that item.
Thank you so much.
And if we're not pulling it, it'll probably pass on consent. So as a former supervisor would say, don't talk yourself out of a possible vote.
There you go.
Hello, good evening, council members, Mayor Whitaker. My name is Azul. I'm 13 years old. I'm here to ask you if you may renew Pacific Drive Park. I actually went to Pacific Drive when I was younger, and I begged my mom to let me play out at the park. Unfortunately, I couldn't because it was very dirty and unsafe for numerous reasons. And if you renew the park, it can help improve citizens' physical and mental health. Parks are key to ensuring the well-being of our environment, since they play a critical part in maintaining healthy ecosystems and providing clean water and clean air. And please don't sell our parks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, concejales y alcalde. Mi nombre es Karime.
Good evening to council members and mayor. My name is Karine.
Primero, antes que nada, quiero darle las gracias al chief de policía, al departamento de policía, a los cadetes, por acompañarnos a la caminata que tuvimos por parte del centro.
So first of all, I want to give thanks to the chief of police and also the cadets who accompanied us on the walk that we had with the center.
Creo que es necesario que la comunidad se involucre y tengamos esa relación con los policías para tener un vecindario más seguro.
I think it's necessary to have the involvement of the community and have that relationship with the police to be able to have a safer neighborhood.
Por la razón que estoy aquí es para que den luz verde para la renovación del parque de Pacific Drive.
And the reason I'm here is for you guys to give a green light for the renovation of Pacific Drive Park.
Yo fui una de las muchas personas que acudieron a las juntas para la renovación y me gustaría que respetaran no solo mi tiempo, sino el tiempo de las personas que estaban encargadas de este proyecto.
I was one of the many folks who attended the meetings about the renovation of the park, and I would like my time to be respected, and also the people in charge to have their time respected as well.
Ya que fueron muchas veces y no importaba las veces que fueran, porque sé que cuando lo lograran íbamos a tener un parque listo.
So there were many times that I went, and it didn't matter how many times was necessary because I knew at the end we would have a park ready.
Estaba manejando y me di cuenta que estaban arreglando el parque de Rolling Hills.
I was driving and I realized that they were fixing up the Rolling Hills Park.
Me dio mucho gusto porque me imaginé las familias que estarían disfrutándolo.
And it made me very pleased because I could imagine the families that would be enjoying that.
Pero me pregunto,
But I ask myself,
¿y el de nosotros cuándo?
and what about ours? When?
¿Por qué el retraso?
Why the delay?
¿Por qué cambiar lo que ya habían dicho?
Why change what was already said?
¿Por qué, si es mucho dinero para la comunidad de Rolling Hills,
Why, if it's a lot of money for the Rolling Hills community,
nosotros no lo valemos?
are we not worth that?
Esa es mi última pregunta. ¿Nosotros no valemos? ¿Nuestros hijos no lo valen? ¿Nuestra comunidad no lo valen?
That is my last question. Are we not worth that? Are our children not worth that? Is our community not worth that?
Me gustaría que por favor ellos, cada uno de ellos, nos digan a nuestra cara por qué siempre tienen que hacer las cosas al contrario de nosotros.
I would like for you to please, each one, say to our face, why do you have to do the contrary of what should be done for us?
Por favor, no vendan los parques.
Please do not sell the parks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas noches a todos.
Good night, everybody.
Sheriff, muchas gracias por estar con nosotros en la caminata en nuestro vecindario.
Sheriff, thank you so much for being with us on the walk in our community.
Estamos aquí para pedir, por favor, la pronta renovación del parque de Pacific Drive.
We're asking, please, we're here to ask for the renovation of Pacific Drive Park, that it will be done soon.
Pensamos que esa va a ser una gran conexión cuando ya esté listo el trail de Union, de Pacific Union.
This is going to be a great connection when it's already ready to have the connection with the Union Trail.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so
por
much.
su tiempo.
Mr. Mayor, if I may just take a quick moment.
Yes, I was hoping someone could explain that if we're not pulling the consent item, what that means.
Lo que va a pasar, no vamos a discutir la número 8 de Pacific Park aquí, y va a pasar.
So what's happening is we're not going to discuss Pacific Park here, and it's going to pass.
Well, it should pass, así de que nomás que acabemos estos comentos, vamos a votar en ese proyecto. Y todo lo que oigo y miro, que sí vamos a adelantar y empezar a construir el parque.
So once all of the comments are done, we're going to vote soon. And with all that my eyes are seeing and what I'm hearing, we'll be able to move forward and approve the park.
Lo más rápido que acaben la plática, lo más rápido que podemos votar. Así de que,
as soon as the
por favor.
discussion finishes, the sooner that happens, then the sooner the voting.
Exactly. Thank you, Councilmember.
Exactamente. Gracias, concejal.
Muy buenas noches a todos, concejal mayor, miembros.
Very good evening to everybody, council members, mayor.
Yo solo vengo a decirle gracias, muchas gracias,
I'm
Chief,
just here to say thank you very much
por apoyarnos en la caminata del miércoles.
for
Porque
supporting us on the walk on Wednesday.
Porque así nos demuestran ustedes que podemos confiar más en ustedes.
Because in that way, you demonstrate to us that we can trust in you more.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias por el support que nos van a dar para el parque, para nuestros niños, para los vecinos, para los niños de la escuela y para los futuros niños que vienen atrás.
And so thank you for the support you're going to give for the park, for our neighbors, for our children, for the children from the schools, and the future children that are coming behind.
No se van a arrepentir, les digo, no se van a arrepentir si apoyan a nuestro parque. A futuro ese parque se va a ver hermoso, que ustedes y sus familias les prometo que van a ir a caminar a ese parque. Se van a ver tan bellos junto con su sendero, se los prometo.
You won't be disappointed in the future with your families. You'll be able to enjoy the beauty of it, and with the trails, I promise that you'll be able to enjoy it.
Muchísimas gracias y buenas noches.
Thank you so much, and good night.
Y que Dios los bendiga a todos.
May God bless each one of you.
Buenas tardes, Mayor y miembros del concilio.
Good evening to the mayor and members of the council.
Gracias, jefe de policía, por la caminata.
And thanks, Chief of Police, for the walk.
Los niños se divirtieron mucho y fue algo bonito para involucrar más a la comunidad.
The kids had a lot of fun, and it was something very nice to get the community more involved.
Gracias, Cónsul Amar, por acompañarnos también.
And thank you, Councilmember Amar, for also accompanying us.
Y muchas gracias por dejarnos hablar a todos estos papás que dejamos a nuestros hijos en las casas.
Thank you so much for letting all these parents comment. And we've left our children home and behind in our homes.
Y también le quiero dar las gracias al mayor por dejarnos hablar y muchas gracias que ustedes van a ver qué felicidad le van a dar a estos niños por renovar el parque.
And I want to thank the mayor for letting us speak, and you're going to see how much happiness you're going to give these children by renovating the park.
Buenas noches.
Good night.
Okay. Hello, good evening. I'm Ekle Nunzi, and on respect, and thank you so much for the approval, pre-approval of our park. I'm going to talk in behalf of all these people that came here, and we're going to make sure this meeting for all of you to proceed. We are here because 2 weeks ago, what happened was our park, Pacific Drive Park, was in the consent calendar, and it was, postponed. Since I always been here in City Council, I always see when it's something in consent calendar, it get approved. We went through so many meetings. We had so much community input. We were working with the school district. We were reaching to every single neighbor that you see here. We walked the streets. And then when we have the sign, we were sure that we're going to have our park. And when we came 2 weeks ago, I spoke to 3 of you. And I said, we are waiting for our park. And that's why we come here to make sure that this get approved. Because 2 weeks ago, it was not approved. Thank you so much for all the effort. Thank you, Chief Dan, because we have a wonderful walk for safety in our neighborhood. Thank you to the police department to come with all of us. Walk with us in the street. Thank you, Councilman Sara, to come with us. I'm very grateful to Assemblywoman Charlotte Silva and Senator Josh Newman. They were over there supporting us too. Thank you so much for everything they do in the city. But our parks, they belong for the people. This is for our children. We ask the school district to support us, our teacher, our principal, because it's not possible that our children being next to a park, we cannot enjoy it. Because it's dirty, it's unsafe, and it's been so neglected for so many years. That money was there almost 2 years waiting for us, and it never was done. They told us to be patient, wait for the Hans Library, then it came COVID, finally we're gonna get it, and then it was postponed 2 more weeks. Please, be respectful of our time. We really are here to work with you, and we show you so many times that the leaders of this community is always working for the city, and we do it because we love our city of Fullerton. Please make this possible for our families. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, did you want a brief interpretation, or so folks could understand in Spanish, or?
No, I think
Councilmember Silva, I think, got through on that.
Yeah, and I think Eglet communicated with them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
I just wanted to speak to item 7. Is that going to be pulled, or can I pull it, or should I speak right now?
Yeah, that was continued to our meeting 2 weeks from now.
Oh, it's continued.
Yeah, it was pulled because there's more information that needs to be conveyed to the council.
Okay, great.
So with that, then they can speak on public comments about it, correct, Mayor?
Sure, there'd be no bar to that right now.
And then okay.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for the opportunity. My name's Jonah Breslau. I work for Unite Here Local 11, the Hospitality Workers Union. I'm a former bellman myself, and I'm here tonight just to express our continued position that we believe strongly that public land should be kept in public hands, and I'm glad that the city is taking more time to explore the opportunities at this site. we've always believed that, speaking to the members of Unite Here, the hardworking housekeepers and hotel workers, we know that workers are struggling to find housing, and we still believe that sites like this, especially when they're located close to transit, are very important to be used as potential development for housing. But regardless, we believe more than anything that we should not engage in a race to the bottom and privatization of this public land, and urge the council to stand against that. Thanks so much.
Hi, Kitty Jaramillo, District 4. I'm here actually to say a few words about Union Pacific Park. But I do want to give some kudos to the police department this year. I swear it was the best year for the fireworks. You guys did an awesome job. I heard maybe a week before the 4th of July and maybe a week after, all done. Yeah, so it was great. My dogs, thank you. And also that you guys are all on Instagram, and I love seeing all the bust you guys were making on all the illegal fireworks. You guys were on the money this year. Regarding Union Pacific, it's been going on, I think somebody mentioned, for like 30 years now. And now that everything is done, the soil is all, safe, and things can be done now finally there. And it's in a section of Fullerton, of course, south side of Fullerton, the neglected side, the mayor, the side you live in. We're still here batting it around again. For how many more years? You know that the south side of Fullerton is park poor. I read all about all the parks off Bass and Cherry, Rolling Hills. All of those parks get done. Isn't it funny how they're not over and over brought over here to city council, postponed, this and that, because they show up and speak and council listens. South side shows up, they just postpone, think of things to remove it, and you didn't trust the previous council, and whatever the ideas this council has now. Well, some of you anyway. I don't understand. South side is park poor. You need to get Pacific Drive in order. You need to move on that project, and I hope you guys are tonight. I'll be grateful. Everybody here would be grateful. But Union Pacific also, I didn't really understand what the city wants to do with that parcel now. You wanting to sell it? I mean, come on. There's no parks right there in that part of town, none. And there's a big neighborhood there of Hispanics and low-income housing and all kinds of things that need a park. So that really needs to be taken care of, a good decision. Think of everybody who lives in that community. Think of them for once. Also, I want to show my support for the city workers. I've always, a million years ago, I started here in 1980 working for the city of Fullerton for 17 years. Then, of course, went over to the city of Santa Ana where the money was. My kids were all grown. And I went over to Santa Ana and got more money, unfortunately. But I still live, born and raised here in Fullerton, and I love it. Sometimes it's hard, but I still love it. But support the workers. Thank you.
Hello again,
I think,
Mayor,
Mr.
Council.
Jensen, you already spoke once during public comment. And
Yes.
the one time, right, Mr. Mayor?
Yes. And
Yes.
I had a quick question. I had pulled item number 8 for Pacific Drive, which I now regret after seeing the inconvenience for the community. But although I do generally support the project, I was wondering if, Mr. Mayor, you would allow me to just briefly speak on it for a moment.
I can't really do that.
Okay.
With the requirements that we have.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Blanca Hernandez, and I want to thank Chief Dan and Councilman Ahmad for the neighborhood walk from last week. Thank you for your support. But I also would like to, I have a concern about parking in my neighborhood. I've been parking at this spot for 2 years already. I never received a ticket, but now I have 3 tickets, and
I'm working. I'm back to work now, but now I have to pay my back rent plus the tickets, and I have to also be. What is it? I have to be. I'm afraid of the thieves stealing our cards, or ¿cómo se dice? Lo de catalizadores.
The catalytic converter.
So I have to. So I'm basically working to pay my bills and the tickets. There's any way that you guys can give us an alternative for the parkings, or give us can we get some permits to park in certain areas? Because really I'm kind of like getting out all this situation
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
the COVID.
May I ask the individual?
Councilmember
May I ask what street you live on?
I'm for because about parking.
Yeah, I know. What street is that you're concerned about, Miss?
Baker and Richmond.
Baker and Richmond.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, so I'm not the only one. I have my neighbors too. The young couple, they just parked the car there. They were like, I had to wash my back from getting a ticket and from the thieves because they want to steal my car. So can you please give us a kind of solution, or if we have to pay for a permit, we can do that. But it's better to pay, 3 tickets, every.
Mr.
Thank
Mayor,
you. Have a great evening.
may I say just something here?
Sure.
I have received several comments and requests on this. I've actually already contacted our traffic engineer to look at that area to see what we can do for it. So so this is in the works, and I'll communicate with you outside of council
Thank
on this
you.
issue and put you in touch with the traffic engineer.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kurt Johnston, and I'm a real advocate of the downtown, right, the central area. I like when things look really nice, and so I'd like to say I appreciate the quick response of the city to fix some of the problems there. The street light there at the transportation terminal at Kelly's Corner was replaced promptly when it burned out. And the new stairways going on the overpass from the train station have been finished, and they look really nice and painted and everything. I'd like to take that a few steps farther. And since the train station is a historical area, I noticed the divider fence that goes all the way down the platform in the middle of the tracks. I found that that's the responsibility of the city of Fullerton, and it looks like since that was put there, like in the 80s, it looks like it's never been painted. So that's almost faded to where it's almost like a rust color, and it should be green. So that would be nice if we could get that painted, and maybe the overpass part to match the stairways, a little bit more brown paint there. I would like to say something about the Pacific Drive Park, and I'm a little bit familiar with those parks. I used to have a little homeless event there every Saturday, and I think what would really help that is if the city workers would keep those restrooms maintained and clean and stocked with the proper things. I think that would discourage maybe some of the activity that people are saying. When things start to look neglected, then that's when the wrong kinds of activity are attracted to the park areas. So I'd like to see more of the city workers out there just maintaining what we already have in the parks and the downtown area, just keeping those sprayed by the bike lockers. Frequently, the people from the bars come out and use those areas as restrooms. So I'd like to see those cleaned on a regular basis, just sprayed down, and just, a lot of what keeps the downtown up is just maintenance, not necessarily more spending and more hiring or whatever. So thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Curtis Gamble, activist for the homeless and veterans. Today I would like to speak to you about the Fullerton Safe Parking Program. A safe parking program can give homeless individuals and families a safe legal place to park and sleep 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. A safe parking program can also consist of cars, trucks, vans, RVs, and shipping containers. It's time that the city of Fullerton partner with Mary's Kitchen, 517 East Struck Avenue, Orange, for a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days a year safe parking program. Although Mary's Kitchen has been asked by the city of Orange to move from the city of Orange SB2 Industrial by Right Zone for emergency shelters, Mary's Kitchen, Gloria Suits, President, CEO, is looking for a new location in case the lawsuit against the city fails. The County of Orange, the OCTA bus drivers, our veterans, the public, the city of Fullerton can join in on helping relocate Mary's Kitchen to one of the following two locations in the SB2 Emergency Shelter Industrial By-Right Zones. By-Right Industrial Zones locations, one is the Goodman Logistics Center, Fullerton, 2001 East Orange Thorpe Avenue, Fullerton, California, 92831. Number two, Bridges at Kramer Place. It's located at 1000 North Kramer Place, Anaheim, California, 92806. The safe parking program should be funded via the $16 million from the American Rescue Act funds / vouchers. These emergency housing vouchers are provided to help assist those who are experiencing homeless, at risk of being homeless, recently homeless, are fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We do have, yes, Bernard.
And I see we have a few hands raised in Zoom, and if anybody else wants to speak in Zoom, you will be up next after this last in-person speaker.
Hello, my name is Bernard, and I am a Fullerton resident. I want to echo the other residents' comments and speak in support of our parks and open spaces. It's quite arrogant to come in at the last minute and try to change a project that has been approved by the residents and the staff has put in so much time and hard work into it. Yet you keep talking about saving money and fiscal responsibility, yet you keep wasting our already overworked staff's time. And we all know time is money. Next time there's a proposed project, make sure to ask relevant questions beforehand so you don't stall another project like Pacific Drive Park. This council majority seems to like to waste time. As for Union Park, it seems this is a giveaway to your private developer friends that funded your campaigns. It stinks to high heaven. Have you no shame? To me, this is my bi-weekly civics class that I am registered in by proxy of being a resident. Thank you for this largely unnecessary lesson on corruption, but we have very little resources and time to waste. Shame on you. Go Bruins, and please get vaccinated.
Madam Clerk, how many Zoom callers do we show?
I see 3 hands raised in Zoom, and I see no other speakers in person. I am going to call on speaker with the phone number ending 8424. If you'll unmute yourself, your number ends in 8424. Okay, 8424, we're going to come back to you. Let's go with phone number with the last 4 digits ending in 3186. Sorry, I did not mean to put the screen on. Just want to make sure we're pointing in the right place. No, the screen will come down. There'll be no picture on it, but. Okay, 3186, I see you are unmuted.
What? Oh, I apologize. I was on, my phone muted myself. My name is Elizabeth Rostos. I'm a constituent of District 5. And I would like to comment just on the patterns I've seen in the city council meeting that I have attended prior to this, as well as the comments brought forward by this evening.
I put myself on star. I did.
Oh. Okay. My main concern is regarding the Union Pacific Park on Treslow Avenue and the delays in moving forward with any plans. And what my main concern with the city council is that it seems as though the things that constituents are bringing forward to these meetings tend to go in one ear and out the other for certain council members. Mayor Whitaker, I was really disappointed in the last city council meeting that I attended. After several people called and came in person to comment on the Airbnb situation, you prefaced your vote with your personal choice of how you and your wife like to vacation. That leads me to be concerned that you do not actually listen to what your constituents have to say. Councilmember Dunlap, after we last discussed Pacific Union Park, or I'm sorry, not Union Pacific Park, not a single resident asked for that land to be rezoned. And that was the first question you had during council comments about how that would be done and what the procedures would have to be. That is gravely concerning to me that you're not actually listening to the constituents of this district and what their requests are. So I implore all council members to please listen to your constituents as it says in your council mission on the website. As Fullerton's elected representatives, the City Council expresses the values of the electorate in keeping pace with the community needs and establishing the quality of municipal services. Having constituents need to wait 4 years for a park is not keeping pace with the community needs. Not bringing justice to a man who was murdered by a police officer and waiting for the district attorney to make a move is not keeping pace with the needs of the community. Thank you.
Okay, and let's try 8424. Last 4 digits. If you'd like to speak, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, sorry I missed you last time. This is Marlena Carrillo. I'm a Fullerton resident, also a Navy veteran, a mother of 3. and that have all gone to school here in Fullerton. And I want to talk about transparency tonight. It's been a big deal. We're talking about police murder. I hear on the comments. Kelly Thomas was one of the grossest and most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life, and we've never gotten anything to do with that. I want to talk about Zara, and I better not get hung up on for this, because you did that last time. Report number FCD 20-51830, September 20th, 2020. Mr. Ahmed Zara was arrested for count 1, charges of maliciously and unlawfully vandalizing, defacing with graffiti and other inscribed material, damaged and destroyed a cell phone belonging to Monica F., a female. Count 2, battery and unlawful use of force and violence against Monica F., a female. On October 29th, 2020, DA Spitzer files charges. But then on the 29th of this year, this case disappears without proper transparency. It is now time that we come together. You work for us, not the other way around, and you release the video from every arresting police officer that night, and we see what Mr. Zara did that night, and we know what's going on, and if charges need to go through, Spitzer, or should I call him a mini Rackauckus, he needs to get up and do his job. We're not going to do this again. So that's what needs to be done, and I appreciate you listening to me and understanding the magnitude of transparency. Thank you.
And that's the last Zoom caller.
All right, with that, I will bring the discussion back to the council. First, staff comments. If there's anything, Mr. Acting City Manager, that you think needs to be addressed based on many of the public comments?
The Adeline Park issue, we have staff working on that. We're going to be reaching out to the community. We're going to see if we can't get some trees planted out there to replace the ones that are there. And the other thing I'd like to bring up is the city manager recruitment is open, and it concludes, I think, the third week in August.
Thank you. Any other staff reports or comments? Seeing none, we'll bring it to City Council. Who wants to lead off on council comments?
I'll lead off.
Sure.
And Mr. City Manager, I believe it was the young lady here regarding the little small libraries. Who can we get to speak with her about that? See if we can address her concern regarding an ordinance and putting up libraries, little, what do we call it, house libraries on the parks.
I may have stepped out during that issue. I don't
All right.
recall that one.
So, well, can she call you tomorrow?
Sure.
And then we can guide her.
Okay.
All right. And it's Alexis, right? Okay. So with that, thank you. Just a couple of things, Ms. Mayor, if I may. I saw it looks like we're moving item 7 forward because there's some items we want to address. I also would like to see on item 7 if we can also, when we bring it back, look at an option for leasing the land versus selling the land at the transportation center. So was that part of the items that we pulled it and moved it forward or moved it up to the next meeting?
Yes, it is, and I appreciate your comment there.
All right, yeah, so we can do that. And then on item 11, the Union Pacific Park, so that also we're bringing back. I also, as we did with Pack Drive Park and with the Hunt Library, could we do a few community meetings with the residents to see what they would like for that park before it comes back to us? So we've done this a number of times, and I think it works well if they help us write the RFP. So I'd like to see if we could do that, Mr. City Manager or Ms. Fitzel, if we could do that. Maybe can have at least 2 community meetings to see what the community wants from that park? Would I need to agendize that, or is that enough direction to staff?
I would think we have to agendize it because you're talking about spending time, staff time and energy.
All right, then if I can get a second, I'd like to agendize
I would
that.
second that, looking into
So we'd like to bring back the next meeting just to get some community meetings and see what the neighbors would like of that
If the
park.
council gives us that direction, sure.
All right. And then lastly, I met with the businessman who's trying to bring middle housing into the city, and I'd like to see if we can do a presentation on that. And again, just to be a presentation to see what it is and what it's not. And I'd like to see if we can get that at the next meeting.
Would you be open to doing that not on a council meeting? Because I don't want to. I mean, look, I spent time with this guy as well, and I not really buying the sales pitch that he's got, and quite honestly, wouldn't want to burden the rest of the council with that. I just if you're open to that, if there's a way to have that perhaps not at a council meeting, or
Well, it wouldn't be a discussion. It would just be like a 10-minute presentation, and that would be it. So it would be like the presentations, 10 minutes. We wouldn't discuss it. We wouldn't dive into it. That's why I want to do it as a presentation.
I will note also, your next agenda is getting very, very, very long. You have quite a few items on there already. You'll probably have the presentation from tonight continue to your next meeting. Just wanted you to keep that in mind. If you don't mind being here late, then by all means, let's add it to the agenda.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, we would keep it at 10 minutes at the most, and go from there, so that we wouldn't have to discuss it up here.
I can support that, and I think during a council meeting would be more appropriate that way. There's more community involved and able to understand this as well.
Thank you. And aside from that, that's all I have tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm disappointed that some of the folks that were advocates of Pacific Drive Park had scheduling issues and were already here very late and are unable to be here. Hopefully they can listen to some of this from home. The fact that elected officials asking questions about any city project produces a manufactured public hysteria, unproductive, and even more important, is completely unnecessary. Department leaders having to explain the cost of items on a $1.25 million renovation project, however lengthy a time frame neighboring residents have had to wait, is and should be recognized as responsible governance. Indeed, the park plans were approved before 2 of the members on council were even elected. So asking understandable questions to our staff about the project should be appreciated by our public. The project improvements did not address the parking lot delinquency and the public restrooms being in the back of the park, which are all of the issues that lead to the problems at the park right now. We were questioning those things, asking those questions. Why weren't those things done? Why weren't the restrooms moved to the front? That's the responsible thing to do. A 2-week delay in a year-long project, I think the public should be able to understand that. But all of those concerns that we echo here, that some of the residents echoed this evening, all of that becomes irrelevant because we have some folks that are interested and enjoy the dramatics of social media rather than the work it actually takes to govern. There is culpability here, Mr. Mayor and Council, and that's unfortunate. Another warning about COVID vaccines and the financial cost of the pandemic's over $16 trillion. That's nearly the entire gross national product of the country. To put it in more palatable terms, $16 trillion would buy every American 2 cars. It's killed over 600,000 Americans, yet in California, our fully vaccinated rate barely cracks 50%. Certainly it's better than the national vaccination rate, but not by much. So now the president is promoting giving Americans $100 to get vaccinated. And I advocate enough with the carrot. It's time for the stick. Because the Delta variant does not suffer fools. New cases nationally are up about 140% in the last 2 weeks alone. Hospitalizations and deaths are up over 30. Requiring the unvaccinated to shoulder their share of this pandemic burden is not only fair, but absolutely necessary now. Vaccination holdouts are not promoting freedom or your conservative faith. You're endorsing your disregard for your fellow countrymen and women. We should all ask if it's best practice to allow people who don't know enough or haven't experienced enough to determine health policy for all of us. So get the shot so we can move past this COVID gray area we seem to be stuck in right now. August is also back to school month. It seems like a lifetime ago that children went back to school in person. Social interaction is a critical component of any childhood. It is particularly important when considering the negative pitfalls of their modern lives, being so contingent upon iPads and iPhones, allowing children to develop important life skills that come with school and sports, like language skills, the capacity to share, cooperate and respect one another, build self-esteem, and enhance collective creativity. All of those things were muted by the pandemic. It seems as if our children lost more than a moment of their lives. So I am encouraged by the excitement in our community about children returning to in-person learning. Look very forward to giving back to them what remains their precious childhood. August 12th is National Vinyl Record Day. The renaissance of records continues. Nearly 20 million records have sold this year alone. Analog ought to be valued in our digital world. Discover how classic Enter the Wu-Tang is. Appreciate the tactile feeling of a Stan Getz or a Chet Baker album, or the crispness of a Wayne Shorter or Eric Dolphy Blue Note record, or put on Maria Callas and Puccini's Tosca or some Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition, all of which are beautiful works of art. So if you have time, dust off an old record and share in its romanticism. August 14th is also Free Comic Book Day. I recall reading comics at my parents' liquor store. I could identify with Peter Parker and Logan, also known as Wolverine. I encourage you to read the complex themes in Watchmen, the political boldness of Frank Miller's Dark Knight, or the great vengeance of the Punisher series. If you enjoy Avengers Campus at Disneyland, please think about visiting one of our local comic book stores. There's one down the street on Commonwealth. And grab a few free comics while you're at it on the 14th. Lastly, sir, August 15th is National Liberation Day of Korea. The day marks a unified Korea's victory over Japan in 1945. Under Japanese rule, my father and my older uncles all carried Japanese names. Most of the patriarchs in my family speak fluent Japanese because they were forced to learn it in school during the occupation. It's important to remember so many Koreans were taken to Japan as forced labor during the occupation. So much so that nearly 1 million Koreans who reside in Japan today mark the third most, ranking only behind China and the U.S. The lessons of war are paid for by the lives of those who were sent to fight it. The lessons of peace are a testament to those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for freedom. We should always be mindful of that debt, sir. Coincidentally, August 15th, 1945 is also my mother's birthday, so it lingers on my mind for several reasons. Finally, in honor of its 35th anniversary, Mr. Mayor, Blue Horseshoe loves Anacott Steel, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I would like to address an issue that is of personal nature. I went through a divorce, and it was contentious. And unfortunately, during that time, there were allegations against me. This happened during an incident in which my mother and other family members were involved and were at risk. I, as a good citizen and a leader in this community, I cooperated to the full extent with our law enforcement officers and with the district attorney, and I had professed my innocence from all of these allegations throughout this, and the law has proven that the DA has dismissed those charges, and Unfortunately, there are those in the community who want to politicize these and slander my name. And in fact, even some have published my own divorce papers. So you think about that for your own families. And, these are community services that we are providing. And I hope that my record and my actions in the community speak for my character. This is behind us. It is dismissed, and according to the law afforded to me as a personal citizen in the state of California, the records have been sealed to protect my integrity and my work and my livelihood. So that, I hope, will come to an end, and we can put this to rest and move on and work in the community to serve our residents to the best of our abilities. I want to say something. The justice system in this is somewhat archaic, and I do feel a sense of pain to those who don't have some clear-cut cases and that have to go through a system that oftentimes provides injustice. In my case, it was clear-cut, and I'm happy that we can move on from that. Now, moving on to city business, I'd like to wish our Muslim community congratulations, and it is Muslim Heritage Month. It was declared by the state as August, and Muslims have contributed to humanity, and to Muslim Americans have contributed to our society here in America in all aspects of life. California has the largest American Muslim community in the United States, and mostly concentrated in Southern California. And here in Fullerton, we have a very large and affluent and contributing a Muslim community, with many organizations that have stepped up also during COVID and fed people and helped people through safety, providing safety and assistance to so many in our community. I hope that I ask our mayor and our city council, maybe at the next council meeting, we can have a proclamation and invite some of the members of the Muslim community here in Fullerton to be able to make this proclamation and celebrate this month. So I hope I can get the blessings of our mayor and our council on that. I also want to say that our city is struggling financially, no doubt about that, and we cannot overstate our gratitude for our employees who continue to work and work throughout COVID and continue to work overtime and in every department. And I hope that we can find some equitable way to bring back the level of services that we all are asking for, whether it's park maintenance or other services in public safety and so on, that we all aspire to in our community. Let us invest in our community and invest in our workforce so that we can actually have the best city that we can be all proud of. Speaking of investing in our community, I'm very glad to have attended the opening, the grand reopening of our museum, and with a wonderful exhibit, and it was a great night. The exhibit depicts the struggles and the journey of black jazz players and blues players, musicians in the 40s and 50s who used the Green Book to follow and tour the South and different venues. It is a wonderful exhibit. It's still, if you haven't been to it already, please visit. You can check out the museum hours on Facebook or on the city website. And the tickets, I think, are $10 for adults and $5 for kids. So please go and support the museum, and let's try to keep it open. I also wanted to thank our chief of police and our police officers who came to the walk for safety, and really much gratitude to the Center for Healthy Neighborhoods and the leadership of Iglet Nunsi and all the wonderful moms who are really strong community leaders. And it was just a really great walk to see the community come together in support of safety and against hate. I finally want to also congratulate an opening of a new restaurant in town, Bundu Khan, and it is a new Pakistani cuisine. And if you haven't tried that, it's barbecue and it's spicy. So if you like spicy, you certainly would enjoy it. It is by State College, and it's called Bundu Khan. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about. I've had a lot of concerns and about our public records requests. There seems to be some difficulty in accessing records. There's some inconsistencies in how we publish these. So I would like to ask if we can agendize an item to make sure that we are making it easy for folks to access the documents that they are and city records, because I know we all believe in transparency, and we should make it easy for people to access any records that they request. So I hope that we can agendize this at a future meeting. I know next meeting is probably going to be too crowded, but maybe in September, so we can first of all inform the public on how to obtain public records, what we have done so far, and then what else that we can do to improve that as well. So I don't know if any of my colleagues would second that.
I'll second that, just as long as it's not in August.
No, September, maybe the September meeting.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is all.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, well, seeing as we still got a lot on the agenda tonight, I'll be brief. I think most importantly, like to congratulate Golden Hill Little League on a fantastic season. We had hoped to have some of the winners in today to recognize them, or this evening to recognize them, but the league had asked that we delay that to accommodate some vacation schedules. But it's pretty impressive, and so we'll be able to give them a proper celebration, I think, in a couple weeks. But they won a state championship, a Section 5 banner, and 5 different district championships. So very exciting for the kids, and it's especially great to see them out playing after having been, having spent a lot of time inside during the pandemic. So very excited for them, and also very excited to celebrate them as an important part of our community. So that concludes my comments.
Thank you. I want to be brief as well. However, there are a few things that need to be addressed a little bit. As relates to Pacific Drive Park, I concur with Councilmember Jung that questions from council members are to be expected, particularly when council members haven't been brought along on a project and have not been informed, and when there hasn't really been an interest in developing support from among council members through the process. If we just a few days prior to a council meeting get something dropped in our lap and it's just expected that we rubber stamp it and just move on, that really isn't the way that things work. And so I concur as well that a 2-week delay is something very minor in terms of making a long-term decision with which we're going to have to deal with the consequences. So many contradictory things come up from the conversation as well. There are those who want to see more green space and more trees and more shade. And yet one of the concerns that I had to carry that item forward a little bit is to talk about a more natural and passive character to that particular park. People say you're not listening to the public, but we have very contradictory opinions among the public. And it's important as a council member to sort those things out and try to determine priorities. Another priority that I kept hearing in regards to this is the south side of the city is park poor, and I agree. But yet many of the same people who say that and make that comment are supportive of using large amounts of park dwelling fees citywide to purchase parcels up in the West Coyote Hills to try to preserve area as a park, which is not even open or available, and certainly it's been a multi-decade effort to try to get that open. But it is in the north of the city, so we do have, again, contrasting priorities here. And another example of that would be the hotel project at the transportation center. There are people who come and appeal to us about wanting to be able to keep up maintenance in the city, wanting to be able to pay city workers appropriately, but they ignore the fact that a hotel project could produce tax money, which would be TOT taxes, which would be very helpful in terms of addressing some of those other problems. And certainly by putting a property on the tax rolls creates more property tax as well and higher assessed valuation. So, very often these decisions, they don't have a single pole answer to them. There's something where things have to be weighed and you have to come in where it's going to do the most good for the most people. So, for people to complain that the council doesn't listen, I think we have a very polarized situation with people coming from both directions at the same time. Even the federal funds, if you talk to a cross-section of the public, those funds have been spent, it sounds like a lot, $16 million a year for 2 years, but they've been spent multiple times in terms of priorities that and competing priorities that people have for those funds. This is all very obvious. I hate to even belabor it by going into it. But there are two other issues that are really gnawing on me that I want to talk about as well. I appreciated the speakers on the Hector Hernandez situation. To me, it's outrageous. I know I was a member of the council back during the Kelly Thomas days. That council voted unanimously to require body cams on our police officers. And a large part of the reason of that was to accelerate investigations. If you have a good video capture of an event, you have multiple police officers there, it should aid tremendously in an investigation and in arriving at conclusions. And so I do also believe it's outrageous at this point that it's 14 months and the public is still waiting to hear anything of any substance involving that officer-involved shooting. I personally am disturbed that District Attorney Todd Spitzer's office has not even acknowledged the letter that we sent out with majority support from this council on it. So I would urge council members to consider whether or not there is more action we could take to try to accelerate this project. A last thing is 1600 West Commonwealth, which we determined that National Corps had provided a proposal that was the most attractive. I commented at that meeting at the time that it was very unusual that we didn't hear any dissent from the public, from the neighbors, from residents in the area, and that must have attested to the fact that that all those proposers had done a good job because there were no complaints, no arguments. Now I'm hearing from so many residents in the Adelina area and they're expressing anger about inadequate notice and notification of that pending action. Well, if that indeed is the case, certainly the council would be responsible for that in some way, maybe not as directly, but certainly indirectly. However, it would also indicate a failure not only by the prevailing proposer, the prevailing project proposer, a National Corps, but really all who submitted proposals. I mean, a big part of their job is to reach out to interested parties and to make sure that they are kept abreast of what actions are pending and what's going to be happening. I know that we print an agenda, we put the agenda out there, it's available online, but I know people have busy lives. They aren't monitoring every city council agenda. And so I think there's enough failure to go all the way around if that indeed is the case. I'm a real stickler for making sure that we provide notice and notification that is adequate when we're making that sort of a long-term change to any neighborhood. And just a last, since I'm getting a few things off my chest, the last thing, council members up here are even concerned about the duration of council meetings. Sometimes they run to the wee hours. But yet, almost every outing, we have many council members who propose numerous items for the next agenda, or certainly within the next two agendas. And I would call attention to the fact that we're all responsible sometimes when these council agendas become really overburdened, and to at least consider the fact that certain of these items might be able to be handled, at least initially, outside a city council meeting. As we're heading into an election year, I could see this becoming just an insurmountable burden. And for whomever is mayor at that time, they certainly have my sympathies. But that's it for my comments this evening. And with that, we are now moving to a public hearing item.
Really, consent calendar.
Consent
right?
items?
Yeah, I'll move the consent
that's right.
calendar.
I'm
I'll
sorry,
second.
consent calendar.
So, well, hold on.
And
I
let's
wasn't finished. I want to move the consent calendar, but we need I want to continue item 7 to the next council meeting for discussion.
Okay. Yeah, you certainly have my support on doing that.
What the, so does that the hotel? I thought that was already, Mayor.
It was, but he's formalizing it, which I
Oh,
appreciate.
all right,
yes.
got it. So and on that note, then, item 7 will also bring back, direct staff to bring back a lease option for the land versus a selling option. That was part of the, okay. Thank you.
And then you're incorporating again that item 11 isn't being cleared right now, right?
Item 11 isn't consent, so.
Right. Oh, that's right. I'm
So,
sorry.
so then I'll second that and for the consent items.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any further comment?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to register a no vote on item number 4. But I won't pull it to discuss it, just for the interest of time.
Okay. Any other? No modifications? All right, with that, we'll call for the vote.
Okay, this is to approve the consent calendar, every item except for item 7. Councilmember Jung.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Zara.
I with a no vote on item number 4.
Yes, thank you. And Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap. And Mayor Whitaker.
Aye.
Passes unanimously except for item 4, which has 1 vote in opposition.
Okay.
The park's good.
And I was about to question the council on whether it's an appropriate time for a short break before we get into a public hearing item, or whether you want to forge on.
Let's forge on, sir.
Okay. All right. So item number 9, new and revised user fees for development-related services.
Good evening, Mayor Whitaker. I'm going to present down here, so I have slides to look at. There are hard copies available for those in the audience if anybody requires a hard copy as well. Heather Allen, I am the city's planning manager. I'm pleased to be bringing this item forward to you this evening after a fairly extensive work effort on this. So happy to be here. Bit of background for this item. So user fees are established to recover the cost of services that provide a specific benefit to the person or the entity that is receiving the service. Government code allows cities to set the rate for these types of fees and allows us to recover up to 100% of the cost of that providing that service. We're talking specifically tonight about user fees that affect planning, which are things we typically call entitlements or discretionary applications, so conditional use permits, major site plans, subdivisions, as well as building-related items, which would be the permit fees, plan check fees, and inspections. Importantly, our last comprehensive update to the fees is coming up on 20 years ago, back in 2001. So when we're talking about full cost for services, that's actually 3 components. It's the direct cost, which is the personnel cost, so your salaries and your benefits, and also 2 what's called indirect costs. So these would be your department overhead costs for supplies, trainings, administration, things like that, as well as central services or shared services for other departments that support the main functions of the city. So human resources, finance, liability, insurance, and the like. To perform this fee study, we looked long and hard at our existing fees and fee structure. As you'll note in some of the documents provided, we are eliminating fees that no longer apply. Processes that are no longer applicable are being removed. We looked for the remaining fees at the time required by staff by position to provide the services, and then we applied the direct and indirect costs to each of those services or kind of workflows, as you call them, to come up with the total direct and indirect costs of providing those services, understanding the regulations governing how we collect fees as we are a public entity. We did engage with Wildan. Representatives are here tonight to kind of provide us some direction as far as best practices and make sure we were doing everything that's consistent with the regulations regarding fees. Back in May, we did come before the City Council for direction, particularly as we'll discuss with the planning side of the fees. These were where the largest differential between full cost recovery was found, and we sought council direction back in May, and as a result of that direction, we've proposed 3 different options for you on the planning side, and then 1 option on the building side, which I'll walk you through. So on the planning side, we have three different options, and they all relate to dealing with where the fees are currently with respect to cost recovery. So the first option takes 3 years to get to full cost recovery. So any fee that currently recovers 75% or more of the full cost increases in 1 year. Any fee that currently recovers between 25 and 75%, we take the increase and split it over 2 years. And then our lowest cost recovery fees get the increase applied over 3 years. So that's option 1. Option 2 is 5 years to full cost recovery. This is really the outermost that we're generally comfortable with in terms of a phased approach. This is also the maximum timing that the city attorney would recommend. Instead of increasing over 1, 2, and 3 years, it takes the same grouping of current cost recovery and spreads the increase over 1, 3, or 5 years. The third option would be a 1 year to 75% cost recovery, so not recovering full cost on those items where we currently are under 75%. In year 1, we would increase anything that's under 75% to 75% of cost recovery, and then anything that's already over would remain unchanged. So those are the 3 phased options on the planning side. I wanted to touch on a few key elements that we are also proposing regardless of the option that is selected. Importantly, preliminary review, we found this to be a largely appreciated and successful process that we offer to the development community. This fee would be increasing to support the time which is incurred to conduct this review. However, importantly, should an applicant decide to move forward with the application, you're essentially reducing 1 round of review, so the fee schedule includes a credit for the fees paid once a formal application is filed. We do also offer a multiple application discount factor, recognizing that there are certain efficiencies gained when an applicant makes multiple applications. So a zone change, a general plan amendment, a major site plan, and a subdivision, as an example, do not have unique work efforts in many respects when we're talking about noticing staff reports, things like that. So in analyzing where we could discount for efficiencies gained, and we're proposing a 50% reduction once the first application is paid in full. Also looking at the conditional use permits and minor site plans, there are levels of review that are indicative to each of these processes, and as a result, we are proposing both a major and a minor conditional use permit fee, and then 3 levels of minor site plan review based on the review afforded those applications. And again, those would be applicable to each of the 3 options. On the building side, when we looked at the differential between full cost and revenue, largely because many of these fees are valuation-based and construction project valuation has continued to rise. We were seeing a much smaller differential between current fee recovery and costs. So broadly, we are looking at a 4% increase to those fees that are based on construction valuation. And there are some flat fees that are based on an hourly cost, so those were adjusted to full cost. So you have two resolutions before you this evening, one on the planning side, where we would ask for a recommendation, ask for your action, and then also included in that would identify the cost recovery option you would prefer. Also on the building side, you have the strike through of both the attachments for the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, as well as the building permits that cover all of those processes. Importantly, and I believe you should have received earlier today, we've been engaged with the BIA. Obviously, they're very concerned about development fees. We provided you with a letter of their support today for a phased approach to implement the planning fees, and they had no issue with a minor increase on the building side of things. So I'm available to answer any questions. We also have our consultant team from Wilden here as well.
Any questions at this stage by members of council?
I've got a question maybe for the consultant. So in terms of, I mean, obviously, I think something we, certainly want to be mindful of, exiting the pandemic, businesses are hurting, right? Trying to get back on track. And so I think it's important to be mindful, especially because our small businesses are so important to us. We want to be mindful of the impact that some of these costs can have. Because obviously we already hear now, really, I think as speaking for myself as kind of the first line. I mean, I always get the calls where people say, hey, you guys are charging me $1,000 for this. I don't have to do this in another city. And so, what are you seeing across, the cities that you service? Are you seeing other cities increase fees at this point or at this time?
Well, it's actually kind of a mixed bag. Depending on the specific, I'd say, characteristics and what's happening within each city, they kind of have their own kind of goals, right? But in large, what we are seeing is that in order to capture the cost of development to the city, because these costs exist whether or not you charge for them or not. So it impacts your general fund. And so it takes away from other police, fire, and other, parks and rec and events that you might want to have. Because those monies instead have to pay for these private benefit services. So we find, especially with kind of the results of our cost analysis on yours, is that you don't see very big increase on your building fees, and so it's a much lesser impact on your residents. While the bigger increases would be on planning side, which affects development itself.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, yes, that was going to be my question is, the impact on residents, but I do see that it's just a 4% increase and you separated those, so that's great. So there isn't much increase there, but I'm always a big supporter of our businesses, and I want to make sure that we are not impacting them, but it seems here we have to sort of strike a little balance because we are also impacting other services in the city as well. So I appreciate that the time staff has spent and your time in helping us analyze this. Hopefully we can find ways to facilitate business and look forward to seeing what our council can do to maybe cut some of these costs down the line, but for now I think we do need to recover some of these costs.
Yes, I appreciate what you're saying about the difficulty of drawing comparisons with other cities, that they do things differently and that it's not an apples with apples comparison. However, we don't operate in a vacuum completely. And where we are out of step with neighboring cities, there should be concerns in terms of the price tag for many of these services. In the end, if we're out of step, if we're higher, considerably higher in some cases, it could mean that those cities are subsidizing more by not getting a full cost recapture. But it also could be an indication that our efficiency might not be matching the efficiency of other neighboring cities. And so you get an opportunity to evaluate and from afar at least take a look at that. We do hear, as the Mayor Pro Tem talked about, we do hear very, intense comments coming from the development community when we're out of step, when we're completely out of step on cost. So on the one hand, to say getting up to full cost recovery makes perfect sense because you're not going to force other taxpayers to subsidize that. But then what that final cost is still matters. It still increases the cost of development, the cost of residential development, everything else that we try to contain costs on. So I guess we'll find out from the public and then may be able to follow up with a few questions.
Yeah, and I can speak to kind of the comparison to neighbors and such. Your current fees are woefully below what we typically see, which is indicative of not having a fee study for the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually what you see when you're doing comparisons. Is you have some cities that do them every 5 years is kind of the recommended approach, and I've had some that they haven't done one since 1998 when the code last told them what the fees were supposed to be.
So in your experience, most cities' costs are comparable, pretty comparable?
It's definitely not, because it really depends on the size of the city, and the way that they provide service. So when we do this kind of study for, say, a city like Irvine, where they were using a lot of contract, but now they're going more to in-house, their cost structure changes quite a bit, right? And so, but they're doing a lot more infill type stuff. And so it really depends on what your kind of development communities bring to the table and what you have going into place, because that also dictates your level of staffing and how much time it takes for them to provide services. So there's a definite change and shift to how services are provided. I will say that your fees, even at full cost, would not put you out of line with what we see from kind of comparisons on these fees.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
While we have you, sir, if you don't mind, reiterating again that our fees are woefully below par, you're saying, correct?
Your current planning fees are very low.
I asked this because when I asked for this some months back, the comment was that we were punishing small businesses this way. And turns out that's not the case in terms of the fee structure, correct?
No, and in fact, some of the changes that were brought up to the fee schedule actually help, like 50% reduction on multiples and such like that. So it actually ties the service a lot closer to the way that service is being provided.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Okay, with that, if there's nothing further from council, I will open the public hearing and invite public comment to this item. Don't trample each other on a mad rush to the microphone.
And they are not screaming and raising their hands in Zoom either. You have no hands raised.
I know. How long a delay should I?
Zoom is real time if they're in the call, so
Okay.
I believe they are okay.
A short public hearing. I will close the public hearing, bring the item back to the council.
I'll move the items, Mayor.
Which option, sir?
Oh, option?
Selected option.
I would say option A with the three-year option. Option one, I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
Waiting for other opinions here.
No, I'm good to go. Call the vote.
You're good for that? I actually preferred a different option, so I may part ways here. But go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'll be okay with the 3 years. I do prefer, I think, a longer period, like maybe a 5-year, only because, we don't know the impact, the direct impact. But if the majority goes with 3 years, I'd like that. Oftentimes these things we don't really see the impact of them until they are in effect.
Right.
So I would like to request as part of the motion is that we can maybe look in a year's time and see what, if there are any negative impacts from this, just as an update to council.
That's why I actually preferred the shorter term option, but I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Well, the maker of the motion, are you amenable to that?
So just having a review next
Just
year?
in a year's time, just to review this to see if there's been any negative impacts.
Yeah, I'll open to having a review.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing to consider too, as we look at it, obviously the development fees, are not yet incurred. They're people that are coming in that are going to be submitting applications, so they're starting really from, square one. So, there's no reason not to institute those changes, immediately. There's no reason to delay that for 3 years. Just assuming I understand correctly, any new applications I think would be, it would be important to charge them the new fees, right? I mean, am I missing something there?
So what are you saying?
Well, because I guess there's there's the two parts. There's I was supportive of the 3-year phase in, but because we're talking about it in 2 phases, right? There's the planning and then also the building, right? So you're talking about really different aspects of that, of the process, and so I'm wondering if there isn't a benefit to maybe introducing the increased rates on the applications for planning related items doing that day one, but then phasing in the items that would affect current or existing businesses and property owners, phasing that in over 3 years. Is that, you follow me?
The degree of
Kind of,
difficulty
yeah.
could be
Sorry.
rather large, I would think.
Well,
So maybe just to clarify.
Yeah.
Short and I'm sitting down. The building fee is not proposed to be phased. The building resolution is a one-time 4% for the
4%.
valuation
Gotcha.
tied to current ICC tables or the flat fee for the hourly rate. So that's a one-time, and that would be for people who obviously have not already submitted.
Gotcha.
To your point, the planning fees, those also have not been submitted. So it's people calling now saying, what do these things cost? Here are the fees. So we wouldn't be penalizing anybody who's in either process.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I might actually be in favor of an I don't know if there's a compromise for 2 years, just because that the way it was outlined there was probably more succinct than anything, in the report. Because the reality is, these are not people that are having the terms changed middle of the, mid sequence or middle of the game. These are people that are calling and saying, hey, we're trying to do this project. What's it going to cost us?
And I think that 1-year review may help us decide that. Okay.
Is there a capacity for a 2-year option, Ms. Director Allen?
Certainly. I might say split it at 50%. So anything that's below 50% would take the increment in 2 years. Anything that's above goes straight, taking the increment in 1 year.
Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
I would support that, sure.
Yeah.
Very good. So you want to revise?
So
that, or should I?
we'll take we'll do it option 4.
Well, it'll be, it's a modified option, which would be 2 years,
Two
as
years.
Ms. Allen indicated.
With the review, with the review.
In 1 year.
Do in 1 year.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure. You can call the vote if you want.
Because I'm happy to do that.
Well, I think you,
got
as
a
a
second.
second.
Second away.
Yeah, I thought you did.
Okay.
Okay, moved and seconded, so we'll call the question.
Councilmember Jung.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap.
Aye.
And Mayor Whitaker.
Didn't want to go to bat for mine because I saw I didn't have support, so I'm going to go no on this.
So it passes 4-1.
Okay.
Thank you.
What do we have now? What's now?
Oh, yeah, this would be so we're at our regular business items now. Item number 10, Police Towing Services Agreement with Pacific Towing. Consideration to extend police towing services franchise agreement with Pacific Towing Incorporated following the 6-month trial period.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, Lieutenant Tony Bogart, who's the commander of our traffic section, will be giving the presentation on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, Chief. So I have this presentation. I'll be going over, as discussed, of the 6-month review of Pacific Tow and the contract that was awarded from the December 15th council meeting and went into contract in January of 2021. Just some council history. The RFP award is given, or actually it's based off of the Fullerton Municipal Code. I'll kind of go through these kind of quickly because this is just more of a history part of this. The background of the RFP process started in November of 19. And it was sent out to multiple areas, multiple businesses through the California Tow Truck Association, and with a deadline date of December 16th of 2019. Ultimately, 4 companies submitted. It was Anaheim Fullerton Tow, which was an incumbent, Hadley Tow, an incumbent at the time, Pacific Tow, and Veterans Tow. Some of the guidelines in this RFP were to make sure that there was compliance of all laws, truck types and numbers, truck conditions, office dispatch, record keeping, evidence hold, security, yard, including car and truck capacity, and office signage. In these inspections, the equipment was required based off of the Highway Patrol standard, and each vehicle and also the location must have complete or followed each requirement based on the RFP. As far as classes of tow trucks, there are 4: light duty in a Class A, medium in Class B, heavy duty in Class C, and a super heavy duty. Each of these, the requirements, each tow company was required to have a certain number to be able of tow vehicles to be able to handle these. On June 16th, council at the time did review the results of the RFP, and council selected Anaheim Fullerton Tow as a tow provider at that time, and also then provided direction to allow Pacific Tow and Hadley Tow a 6-month reinspection period. Veterans Tow was not considered at the time because they're outside of the parameters of the tow guidelines. And as I mentioned, December 15th, council was presented with a reinspection and of both Hadley and Pacific Tow, and the direction was to give them a 6-month trial period. Hadley Tow was going to be allowed to participate in that, but they were on a suspension list from the California Highway Patrol, and they are still currently suspended. So Pacific Towing was the only tow company that had took part of this 6-month contract. So during this time, police staff at the Traffic Bureau did do some inspections, but as I mentioned here in this slide here, January 18th is when the agreement with the City of Fullerton and Pacific Tow was signed, and it was with that 6-month period, so as to expire July 17th of 2021. Due to some staffing and some time to allow for reinspection and for council consideration, a 1-month amendment was given or extension to that original contract to expire in actually on the 17th of August. So as I now going into our inspections from the police department, first inspections occurred on the 15th of February. And where the staff had actually had done the reinspection at the Coronado address in Anaheim. 5 of the 9 tow vehicles had passed with some deficiencies that were corrected right away. Some deficiencies that were found in the reinspection from the December report about office signage and evidence storage were corrected as well. There was no change in the size of the vehicle storage per the tow guidelines. At the time, the owner of Pacific Tow, Mr. Fregali, he did mention that he had leased a property located in Anaheim, still within the 5-mile radius of City Hall per the tow guidelines. But it was not ready to be used at the time. Staff inspected that location and found it lacked buildings, office, lighting, security, and a full-time staff, and also security cameras there. To go back a little bit as far as the storage requirement, per the tow guidelines that were approved by council in 2019, any storage space by a tow company has to have the capability to have a minimum of 100 stored impounded or disabled vehicles from Fullerton Police Department calls for tow service. And also have the ability to store two 80-foot tractor trailer combinations up to 7 days, and also have one for long-term evidence storage as well. So that's just as a little bit of a background. In looking at Pacific Tow's property on Coronado, the estimated car count for the area which is to the rear, which on your presentation is outlined by a red box, has a car count about 91. There's a side area which is in a green box. You can see to the right there about 23, and then there's inside storage that has about 25 to 26 vehicle count capability. So based on the estimates of the storage area, plus or minus on that property, it can store about 140 cars. Pacific Tow also is in contract with the California Highway Patrol, which asks also in their requirements of 8,000 square feet or 50 cars exclusive. And Anaheim Police Department also requires 100 cars exclusive. And to date, actually, this is an update based on from the time this was submitted to council. They're no longer in contract with the Orange County Sheriff's Department. Going off of our numbers of the number of vehicles towed in 2019 numbers, which was the last one based on this report, the police department had towed about 1,390 vehicles, averaging about 116 a month. So that just kind of shows some of the restrictions of the capabilities or of storage for this property on Coronado. As time went on, in March of 21, staff had actually went and did some re-inspections of the remaining 4 vehicles, tow vehicles, and all passed after some minor repairs were completed. At that time in March, there were no changes to the storage capacity deficiencies at the location. July 12th, a re-inspection was done, and the facility had met all the standards of the tow guidelines except for the same storage capabilities issues that had been found in the recent inspections. And even the secondary location on commercial in Anaheim had no changes at the time. So since there had been, actually I'll back up a little bit. So there had been some violations of the tow agreement as well from Pacific Tow that occurred within. There was two that were reported during this 6-month time frame. One of them occurred March 13th of 2021, where Pacific Tow had denied a request to tow a 12-foot box truck. It was a large truck where the driver required a Class A license. Pacific Tow did not have an available driver at that time with a Class A license, so they had denied the request. And then the second was on April 29th, 2021, where an improper drop fee was charged. The situation where it was a large vehicle, and the owner was there. The improper fee was charged, but it was remedied pretty quickly by Pacific Tow. In fact, that within the next few days, it was remedied, and that customer was refunded money. As far as tow drivers, which are also a requirement of the tow guidelines, currently Pacific Tow has 11 drivers. 9 of them possess a Class C license, which allows for the light-duty towing only, which are the Class A tows, as I described earlier. And they have 2 drivers that possess a Class A license for the heavy-duty tows, which fall under the Class B, C, and D tows in the tow guidelines. Just one of the drivers that possess a Class A license have an endorsement for tank vehicles. So if there was a request for a police request for a tow of a vehicle, a tank vehicle, only one driver would be able to do that because they would need to have the proper licensing and the endorsements for that. Currently, actually, at the time of this presentation was put together, none of the Class A drivers employed by Pacific Tow had endorsements for doubles or triples or hazmat vehicles, which is another requirement of the tow guidelines. Those requirements state that the Class A driver must have this type of license so they can tow these heavy vehicles with multiple trailers as requested by the police department. There is one change here in this presentation because at the time of this there were no changes, but there was we got updated information that one of the drivers Class A, that had a Class A license has taken the classes and had applied for the endorsement of doubles and triples, and it also is in backgrounds now and in the process for obtaining a hazmat endorsement to their driver's license. But currently, in a check with the DMV, they had not been completed as of yesterday. Before I get to the questions part, I do want to just add another thing that was not included here. Another inspection was actually done yesterday, and on the 2nd of August, and at least of the facility, and it was found again that there has been no changes for the storage capability. And the second lot that was located on Commercial in the city of Anaheim was still not ready based on the tow guidelines. They were still waiting for electrical power to be routed to the property, and there was other things that did not meet that criteria based off of the requirements, but there was no business office, there was no signs requiring notices, there was no communication from the outside, no 24-hour security or personnel on staff at that location. And let's see, I just want to make sure I covered all those. Yes, so that was the inspection just as of yesterday, and I'm open for any questions by council.
See none at present, except I might have a question or two. You cited the average tows 116 per month?
Yeah, those were those numbers based on 2019, yes, sir.
I was curious, how many of those on average are heavy-duty tows each month?
As I look back, it's probably about a 3%, 4%.
So that ratio of drivers, 9 who were unable to do heavy tows, but 2 who are, that would appear to be adequate with that ratio. Has that been a problem, an operational problem?
It hasn't, except for the violation that we did run into, is that they did not have the proper driver at that time.
Right.
But again, this is a percentage, and these are also based off what the tow guidelines were for in the RFP.
Well, I'm wondering, our primary tow company, Anaheim Fullerton, have they had occasions where they don't have the right driver available at a given time?
To my knowledge, no.
Really, never, huh? Wow. Okay, any other questions by members of the council?
If I may, that was going to be one of my questions about the heavy duty. So it seems if they get their second driver all squared away, that would be fine. Their second heavy duty driver, right?
To answer your question, Councilman, just based on the tow guidelines, is that they need to have the two drivers, but that have all of the endorsements that are needed.
Right. And so, and you were saying that they're in the process of doing that, right?
One of the two drivers were in the
Okay.
process.
All right. And then, yeah, that was all I had. And I guess if we can ask a question of the vendor, he's out here.
Sure, I wanted to make sure that the council was covered on it, and with that, we will we'll seek.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah. There, and I guess the question I want to ask him is, are you in the process of bringing your storage, the second storage area up to code, up to the guidelines?
Well, the one that we have currently that we're leasing, we're waiting for the city of Anaheim to bring permanent electricity into it.
Okay.
So, but in the meantime, we're looking at other buildings, and we made an offer, and I submitted an offer that we had signed last week for an additional building that has got a building on it, that's got a yard, everything, and it's just right down the street from us.
And when do you anticipate that Anaheim will get you that power to that?
We don't know. It could be a week, it could be a month or two. We've been waiting since we signed the lease in January.
And then the offer you made on this other building, that would meet the requirements of
Of
the
course.
yeah?
Of course, and I showed it to Corporal Beatty.
And then we would have to go inspect it, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
That's correct.
And then my driver, the Class A driver, he passed all his endorsements. I forwarded to Corporal Beatty yesterday. He has his doubles, his triples, his tankers, his hazmat he passed, but they won't issue on hazmat until he does a background check.
Okay.
So he submitted for the background check. Hopefully, as soon as we get it, we'll forward it to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you answered a lot of my questions, and you know, and I really appreciate that you've been very cooperative, and I know I heard some really good review from our PD as well on your responsiveness, and I certainly hope that these could be just issues that could be as easily remedied, but it seems that you are working towards that, so appreciate that
Thank you,
cooperation. Yeah.
I have one thing to add regarding the call that we missed. It's part of the RFP. It's not we declined it. It's because we can't make the time within a time frame that we have in the rotation. We have to notify dispatch right away if we cannot make the time within 45 minutes on a heavy or an hour at night, that we notify them right away so they can. That's the beauty of having two companies on rotation. So the second company can back it up. Instead of having the officer sit there in the middle of the intersection for 2 hours until we get there so we don't decline it, we passed it.
Okay.
And that's part of the rotation through the RFP.
So if I may just, Mr. Mayor, so you that one incident was because you were farther away and you didn't want to wait. It wasn't because you didn't have one.
Correct.
A driver. It was just the timing. All right.
Yes, sir. I was out of town, and my other Class A was in Riverside.
Okay.
And for him to come from Riverside to get into a truck, we would have been written up for making the officer wait. We would rather pass it than get written up.
Thank you.
I had a question too involving the storage requirements. I was curious if City of Fullerton has about 116 tows per month. What is the average duration of, say, non-evidence hold tows? What's the average duration before those move out of your facility?
So 116 is tows a month, but you got to take in consideration we're only getting 56, 60 of those cars because the other are going to the other company.
Right.
So out of those 60 cars, we might get maybe 1 or 2 evidence, and maybe. So in the 6 month, we have, I believe, 3 cars that are in evidence hold right now. The most of them are either junk that clearing out the streets or accidents that they come and pick them up right away. Within a week's period, things are turning around.
Right. I was just trying to ascertain whether most of those 116 stayed around for a month, or,
No,
or
sir.
are they out in a matter of a day or two in many cases?
We're only getting half of the 116 because the other company's getting them. And maybe 30% of them, 30 to 40% are accidents, DUIs, registrations, and illegally parked. So they move quickly.
Now, you do for the Anaheim PD as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Are their requirements for storage similar?
Yes, sir.
Compatible? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So even when you are doing multiple accounts, you do have to have that dedicated storage for each contract?
We put the junk cars there that are cleared and ready to go to the junkyard or go into the auction.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, any questions? Okay. The only thing that I wanted to say as well is that I do see, and I've always seen an advantage in having multiple tow companies that are pre-approved.
Yes.
So very often, even if one of our tow companies, which has served us pretty reliably, even if there are some issues, I don't know, to me it's never made sense to disadvantage ourselves by decertifying anyone else and then having only one alternative. So, but I think it is important, apparently the other operator is saying that if you're not meeting requirements, then they don't need to meet requirements either. So that's, again, if we didn't extend your contract, then we'd be left only with them. I'm a big believer in competition. So the idea of having alternatives is important, usually.
Yeah.
Do you think, how long do you think it'll take to resolve these issues?
The driver issue is already halfway resolved, and here's the other thing. On the list, he had one that was pending. That one pending, I lost a driver that was a Class A. He did his fingerprints in April, and we're in August, and he's still pending. And that was a Class A driver, fully endorsed. He had everything. But I couldn't hire him and I couldn't keep him because I couldn't run him for Fullerton PD. So I lost him. He's still pending. All my other Class C drivers got cleared within a week. I'm still hiring right now, as you can tell. Everybody's struggling to hire because they're making more money sitting at home than actually earning a dollar. And I'm the next Class A driver, and I'll be taking my endorsements and classes within the next couple of weeks.
That is a widespread problem, isn't it? With
Yes, sir.
people making
Yes,
more
sir.
money sitting at home.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well,
And the building-wise, hopefully within weeks. Real estate is also hard to come by, and it's very hard. We have a couple of buildings we're looking at because the requirements, they're saying that the yard only by itself, it might not meet. We're looking at other avenues, and we already made an offer on one.
well, that Anaheim Fullerton is doing a move right now. They're changing, and so I'm not sure how they're going to be able to juggle that problem as well. But with that, I need to request public comment on this item. So if there are no further questions, we'll do that. Thank you for speaking on this.
Thank you.
I will request anyone wishing to speak to this item to signify that. And seeing none in chamber, do we have Zoom callers on this?
I see no hands raised in Zoom. I say speaking slowly just in case. No hands in Zoom.
All right, we'll bring it back to council and
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to extend the contract for 6 months.
I was going to suggest we do well, if we do it 6 months and they don't meet the requirements, are we going to have issues with the other vendor in terms of if they're not qualified, do we have to have Anaheim Fullerton qualified? That's just a question. Would that be an issue, Mr. Attorney or somebody?
I'd have to turn to the.
No, I don't think there's a problem with extending them to 6 months. I think perhaps some finality to if the issues aren't corrected at the end of those 6 months, that we terminate the contract would be helpful, perhaps. But other than that, I think it would be fine.
Okay, all right.
I think
Thank
we'd be in trouble if our primary tower wound up disqualifying themselves
Yeah.
too. In my experience over 11 years, there have been very few tow companies that size up for our requirements.
Yeah.
Well, if we end up with the amount of compliance, I'm sure the chief will bring it back to us and we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we have a motion and a second. If there's nothing further at this point, we'll call the question.
Councilmember Jung.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Zara.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunlap. And Mayor Whitaker.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
And with that, we are at our last item of the evening, which is where we will select delegates and alternates for Cal City's annual conference. Cal Cities, formerly the League of California Cities, requests that City Council designate a voting delegate and up to 2 alternates for the Cal Cities annual conference held September 22nd through 24th in Sacramento, California.
So I like to be considered for the delegate if it's the will of the council. I'm the Orange County, I'm on the Orange County board, and so I'll nominate myself, I guess.
I would support that. Unfortunately, my schedule has changed, my work schedule, and those days have been blocked. I have other work travel during that time, so I'm very confident that Councilman Silva can represent the city well.
Councilman Silva, I'm honored that you would throw your hat in the ring. I will do that as well. Is that a substitute motion that I have to make?
No. I will certainly second your nomination as well, so.
Sorry, late hours. So are we voting one-on-one, or how are we doing this?
Well, we're getting nominations. That's right. We do have a delegate and then 2 alternates to select.
So this first vote is for the delegate?
For the delegate, yes.
Okay.
Support Mr. John.
Well, it sounds like we have both Mr. Silva and Mr. Young who put their names in
As
for
delegate.
nomination. And if we close the nominations, we can have this, we can poll the council and see how the vote goes.
Okay, but we don't have to designate an alternate, right?
Come back to that after we.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
No, we'll see who's successful, and then we can.
Okay, yes, we can,
And then this will be a roll call vote, but instead of yes or no, you will name which candidate you are in support of. And we'll start with Councilmember Jung.
Jung.
Councilmember Silva.
Silva.
Councilmember Zara.
Silva.
Councilmember Dunlap.
Jung.
And Mayor Whitaker.
Jung.
Okay, now I was getting late and I can't talk. Councilmember Jung has 3 votes in favor.
So now the discussion is choosing an alternate.
Okay.
Or 2.
I'll throw my hat in for the alternate.
Okay,
I'll second that.
right.
By unanimous acclamation, you can make him the alternate.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's make this unanimous acclamation.
All right.
Without objection. Okay, good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, very quickly, while I have everybody's brief attention, I know staff is reviewing Divine and JP 23 and working with those operators to make sure that they're in conjunction with our public safety officials and our staff. I'd like to add to that list Lucky Motel and proprietor Raj Shah, if I may, Director Fritzl and Mr. City Manager, if we can have staff review and report their public safety strain like we're doing with the other 2 entities. It's important that we can work in conjunction with business owners to improve their community footprint or sanction them accordingly. And then finally, I know that the next meeting agenda is going to be packed, so I'm not going to bear responsibility nor waste any more of the councilman's time here. So the Fox Theater, I'd like for the September meeting, if we can come to a conclusion on this decades-long journey. Venues had a lengthy wish list, but no purpose as far as I can see. And I'd appreciate a staff report update on the next agenda on the Fox Theater, or the September agenda, excuse me. What amount of money that's not earmarked to them by Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk Silva have they raised, number one? Because if they've not raised more than a negligible amount, I question the relevance of a foundation or a board in its entirety at all. So I'd like to move forward on this. If we can get a report on that in September, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, in my opinion, that evaluation is overdue, no question. I wanted to thank you 2 gentlemen for being brave enough to wander into the wilds of Sacramento on behalf of the council. So, And with that, we are adjourned to our next regularly scheduled council meeting. That would be on August the 17th.